Joe Rogan Podcast. Check it out.
The Joe Rogan Experience.
Train by day, Joe Rogan Podcast by night, all day.
Let's fucking go. Oh, we're live. Hello, Dave Smith.
Hello, sir.
Good to see you, my brother.
Yeah, it's great to be back.
Fun times last night.
Unbelievable, man.
Yeah, that was your first voyage aboard the mothership.
Yes, it sure was. If you're going to get abducted by aliens at a comedy club, it's the one to be at.
Yeah, imagine if they showed up there.
I imagine if they were going to pick a comedy club to start abducting people, it would be yours.
Well, they would know that we'd be open.
That's true.
The improvs would probably, like, charge them.
Whereas you would welcome them in.
Yeah, I'd put them on the guest list.
It is. I know. I feel like I'm just saying the same thing everyone does, but the club is really amazing, man. You did an incredible job.
It's pretty dope. Well, it wasn't me. I mean, it was sort of, but it was a lot of people. And a lot of it, Richard Weiss, the architect and designer, he's the fucking man. He did an incredible job. The whole thing's just very bizarre, you know? If it wasn't mine, I'd really be able to appreciate it.
Yeah, I'm sure that's true. But it's cool to see something, you know, like there's something cool about having a concept in your head and then seeing it manifest into reality.
Yeah.
Because I remember, you know, you talking about this over the last couple of years, like we're going to do this and it's going to be like this. And then like it's cool to see it materialize.
I've never done anything like this before, obviously. But I mean, to have an idea and to just like go all in on this idea and just really try to cut in zero corners and just do the best version of it. And there was a lot of delays because, you know, we said, okay, let's change this, let's change that, let's do this, let's do that. And when I had an idea, you know, an idea to change things, it's just like you have to kind of follow through with it. You just, you know, it's like you have one chance to do it right and you don't want to go back and close for 2 weeks so you can do new construction and fix something. And so we just, you know, it took a long ass fucking time. You know, there's a lot of people saying, you're not opening a club. It's bullshit. It's all bullshit. They just didn't. I knew once it got, I'm like, talk all that shit. Because once this thing gets open, they're all going to want to come. And the ones who can't, a lot of FOMO.
Dude, I thought, you remember this is like, was it like a month ago or something like that? You texted me, or I texted you congratulating you that for the club opening. It was like right around when it opened. And you texted me back, I can wait for you to come see it. I think you meant to say, I can't wait for you to come see it. But I thought there was something so funny about just texting me. Like if that was your way of telling me you don't want me at the club. You're like, I can wait. I can wait for you to see it, actually.
Oh, that's hilarious. It has been a problem, though, because there's, you know, a lot of people want to come. And some of them are just, you know, people are weird, like that want a headline and you know that they know, like, you know that you're not really a headliner. Like, what are you talking about?
I'm in the position where I was talking to Adam about it because I'm trying to find he's trying to find me a weekend. And then I was like, oh, I'm free this weekend. And he's like, you know, I offered that to Schultz, but let me see. And then I have to be like, you know, you don't want to book Andrew Schultz, man. He harasses the staff and stuff. So, like, you know, I just have to lie about my friends. You're like, he's actually gotten really into drugs, man. He's been assaulting people. You don't want to have him here.
Yeah, he, like, loses it on stage.
Yeah, it's really not cool.
Yells at people. It's weird when you hear stories like that, like someone, like, losing it, yelling at people and shit. I've heard, like, weird stories about people. You know? I think the pressure of stand-up, like, the constant performance, it's like running an engine at very hot, at high RPMs for many, many miles. Like, things blow.
And we're all kind of crazy people to begin with.
Yeah.
So some people have that more in check than others. But yeah, I don't want to name any names, but I've seen a couple hot ones.
Yeah.
In my day. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. It's the most fun people, though.
Yeah.
That fucking green room, like the hang in the green room, it's like one of the greatest things of all time.
It's just excellent, man. It's set up like you can just tell it was designed by a comedian. You know what I mean? Or at least like there was that perspective was taken into account.
And tonight, after the show, we'll go to the bar because the bar becomes like a speakeasy at 11 p.m. It's a private club from 11 p.m. on. So it's open to the public until 11. And then after the shows, the comics and the staff all come down and hang.
Amen.
It's the best, dude.
Hell yeah.
We just like created what I thought would be the perfect environment to develop comedy. So there's 2 nights of open mics, which I think is very important. And, Bill Burr and I were talking about this when he was in town. And he was like, that's something that a lot of these clubs just forgot. They just want to fill the place every night and make a lot of money. But you got to have a farm team. You got to have guys coming up. You got to have, places where women can go on stage, where men can go on stage, where anybody can go on stage, where you could just you don't have to have any experience. You don't have to have nothing. You just have to have a dream and some ideas and a sense that you think you could be funny, and you can get up.
Yeah, and when one of the things that's cool about it, and I think a lot of this is like because it's your club, that there's just there's this kind of like there's just this thing in you where you're like, you can be fearless here. This is like to borrow a like a safe space to be a comedian. Like, go for it. And it's almost because it's your club, and the crowd knows that. They know that like they're coming for comedy here, and it's just great because that's one of the things that's especially in cities across America now. Like in terms of like regular showcase clubs, it's different when you go out and like headline because that's kind of like your crowd coming.
Right.
But just random like spots and stuff, that's a lot of comics that's kind of in the back of their mind. Like, oh man, is there going to be someone here who's looking to get offended at something I'm saying? And that's a real thing.
I've seen it. I've seen it at clubs. It's fucking bizarre where someone will start a premise and then someone will yell out, "Bullshit, fuck that."
Yeah.
Like they'll yell out like to like virtue. They'll like have my flag of virtue. I will hold it up in this crowd of people that are trying to enjoy something that's obviously not real. Yeah. It's called stand-up comedy. You know what it is.
I remember I had a bit about this on my in my hour that I put out in 2017, and it was just like right when Donald Trump, like first came into office. But I remember like working out stuff at clubs in New York City, and if you started a premise about Donald Trump, you could feel the tension in the room where people are being like, you better not like him. Like, you better get to the point where you're against him. Like, are you on my team? Are you not? You're not on my team yet. Like, you could like feel it in,
Especially New York.
Yeah.
Dude, I was there when he got elected. And me and my friend Cam Haynes. Were you there, Jamie? We were walking down the street, and Jamie too. We were walking down the street, and there was an anti-Trump protest. And I was watching this guy. And this fucking stereotypical liberal progressive white guy was walking down the street, and he was chanting out, "Donald Trump, KKK, racist, sexist, anti-gay, Donald Trump." And then he saw this black couple walking towards him, and he starts going, "Black Lives Matter, Black Lives Matter." He just like on cue. He's like, he got that part. Black Lives Matter. He just starts, and I'm like, this is adorable. These people are adorable.
It is really, it's something Donald Trump, he broke a lot of brains.
Yeah.
I don't know. It's a really weird impact that he had on people, where he just got them so angry that they could no longer think straight. I remember I was living in the Upper West Side of Manhattan at the time when he first got elected, and I remember seeing like some of those like protests. I remember seeing, I remember a couple with like their little girl, like maybe she was like 12 or something like that, and she was holding up a "worst president ever" sign, and you're like, okay, first off, he's had the job for 2 months. Second off, this is very disrespectful to all of the horrible presidents before him. Like LBJ slaughtered like 2 million Vietnamese. He doesn't even get like a shot at contention here.
Right.
You're already giving it to Trump. Like, give him time. He'll do some bad things.
He was probably involved in the Kennedy assassination as well.
Almost certainly.
Yeah, probably.
But you don't want to talk about that.
Seems like he didn't like JFK. It seems like maybe he liked the CIA.
It seems that way, but you don't want to talk about it too much, Joe. You could lose your Fox News gig that way.
You know what I love about LBJ? He used to take a shit with the reporters, like standing there with a stall open.
He was a wild dude.
Just take a shit. Come on, let's talk. He would just sit there and fucking grunt one out.
It's the strangest but yet most alpha thing to possibly do.
Yeah.
To just comfortably shit.
Come watch me shit.
While you talk to someone about Cambodia.
Yeah. But yeah, that's a wild move, watching people shit.
It's a wild move. It's more wild to just have the confidence to just shit in front of people.
He's like, I'm the fucking president. Yeah, he was just, I guess.
Yeah, he was a bad guy.
Would have never been elected. Well, you can't say never, because if Biden was running against him, he probably would have been elected.
Yeah, Jesus. Oh, Biden was only 50 at the time.
The fact that he's running again is so wild when you watch him talk. The fact that there's no leadership that can find a solution to this, because there really is no solution. I mean, we've bantered about it, you and I, and a lot of other people have as well. Like, what are they going to do? Like, what is the other than Biden dying, like very soon, and then someone stepping up in a big way that makes sense.
Which is not beyond the realm of possibility. He's older than the average life expectancy, I believe, already. Not saying he will die, but that is possible. I'm sure there are a lot of people like in the Democratic establishment who have been like I could just imagine there's a boardroom with like very powerful people meeting who they're like, okay, we're getting him out. What's the plan? Like, how do we do this? And I think they just cannot come up with one.
I can't come up with one. Well, I mean, I'm not a political strategist, but, I know the landscape. I know who's out there.
He's perhaps brilliantly insulated himself by making Kamala Harris his vice president.
It's not a bad
because
move.
they're like, well, we can't have her.
It's like with Dan Quayle, with Bush.
What do you want?
Yeah, you think Bush is dumb? Look at this fucking guy. Yeah, it's amazing. It's a good move. I mean, it's kind of a bitch move, though. You know what it's kind of like? It's kind of like those headliner comics who bring terrible openers.
Yeah, that's what it is.
You know? It's
like, yeah, you really want to do an hour after Kamala Harris? Like, all right. The crowd's dead, but all right.
Time is like time. It just passes, and time is something that we're all aware of.
But I got to say, I don't understand it, Joe, because sometimes you'll see it and you're like, all right, you're doing a thing here. Like, this isn't real. You're like, is this a strategy of some sort to just say nothing and like sound as dumb as possible? Because you can't be this dumb.
I think it's panic.
Maybe.
I think it's anxiety, and I think it's panic, and I think no one can understand, even you and I who perform live in front of strangers all the time. We would never be able to understand the kind of pressure that must be on a person who's deeply unqualified for the job, and then all of a sudden finds herself in there through, he went out of his way to say that he was going to have a black woman. Like, it was a thing that he wanted to do. It was like they had these diversity and inclusivity checkpoints that they had to reach.
Which is also just a really shitty thing to do to her. It's like a really profoundly selfish thing if you think about it. Because if you wanted, say, you wanted to make Kamala Harris your vice president because you want a woman of color in there or whatever, the thing to do would be to say, I'm going to find the absolute best, most qualified person and then pick her. But if you do that, like, that would be more generous toward her, because then it makes it look at least like she was the best person for the job.
Right.
Whereas if you say, I'm going to make sure I pick a black woman, now you get all the brownie points for like, oh, how woke you are. But now you kind of undermine her as like, well, she's the best black woman I could find. That's not necessarily the best candidate. So it's a shitty move.
I think it's a good thing. I've talked to a lot of intelligent people that think it's important for representation. And I'm like, I could see how you would say that in a lot of jobs, but this is probably the most important one that anyone could ever have ever.
So, see,
it's got to be a meritocracy.
Well, what's weird about it is it's almost as if there's some weird prejudice built into that idea. Because if you don't believe in like superiority or inferiority of different races or different groups
or genders,
right? Different genders, then you would just go, well, make it a meritocracy, and let the absolute best person have the job. And I'm confident in that system that lots of different people will be represented.
Right.
Whereas if you're saying like, well, no, we need to make sure it's that, like, wouldn't it be more ideal to just have the best person at every job?
Yeah.
And then to have any type of forced diversity?
Right.
Like, why would that not be better? Everyone in society is better off if the best person qualified for jobs gets those jobs.
Yes.
You want the best scientists and the best doctors and the best pilots and you want everyone to be the best.
Yeah.
No one ever wants like your surgeon to be picked based on anything other than the best at performing this surgery.
Yes. Yeah. You don't ever say, I want a white man doing surgery on me. Like, no, who the fuck is that Chinese lady the best? Bring her in.
Like, do more people survive when she does
Jesus
it? Then
Christ.
I'd like her.
Who's the expert? Fix my brain. Yeah. It's interesting because it's like It's very similar in some ways to affirmative action, right? And affirmative action, in my opinion, is you're addressing a problem without addressing the root of the problem. The root of the problem is, why are so many people of color disenfranchised? Why are so many people who grow up in neighborhoods where there's rampant crime and violence, and why haven't they fixed those fucking neighborhoods? They're dumping so much money into all these problems overseas. We have systemic problems in America that never get addressed. Until those, and this is like generations it takes to fix these problems. It's like a long-term strategy. But I've always said this. If you want to make America the best, what would be the best way to do that? Well, you want less losers, right? So what's the best way to have fewer losers? To give more people opportunities. So who are the people that have the least opportunities? The people that are in the most fucked places. You could fix that. There's ways you could dump tons of money and resources into inner cities, into these problem areas with law enforcement, with community centers, places where people could go where they have like things to do, and people can train them in whether it's athletics or different jobs and and show them and mentor them. That's all. That's not like prohibitively impossible. You're not saying like they all deserve their own nuclear power plant.
Right.
You know what I'm saying? It's like what you're saying is totally doable, and that's the way to fix all these problems of disparity, because people that grow up in wealthy communities where everyone is sort of trying to achieve things, there's a vibe of those places, and so many of those people from those places wind up succeeding.
Yeah, I think it's a lot of it, I think, also is that there's a very kind of like shallow narrative about what it is that keeps people in these areas down. And so it's kind of like, it's just it's racism or it's systemic racism, just these kind of terms that aren't specific. It's like, wait, what is actually happening here?
Right.
And so much of the problem is that like the kind of culture and family units have just been destroyed. Like they've been decimated. And then it's like you can pump money into like the public schools there, which we do. We spend a lot of money on public schools, and they're still crappy schools, and the results are still bad. And if you're not like, even back in and there's a lot of like Walter Williams and Thomas Sowell, who are both like two black conservative, really brilliant thinkers. They both wrote a lot about this, how like in the 40s, even during, there was, segregation in the South, and there was like a whole bunch of horrible policies. But even back then, you could walk around Harlem with no threat of like violence or anything like that. And family units were together. I believe the black legitimacy rate was higher than the white legitimacy rate at the time. And there were a lot of policies that came in that really destroyed like the family unit.
Like what policies?
Well, the rise of the welfare state was a really big one. It kind of subsidized single parenthood, which is people respond to incentives, even though it seems like that's an ugly thing to think. But if you pay people for having children out of wedlock, you do get more of it than you otherwise would have. And the other major one to me was the war on drugs, which I just think was absolutely devastating to these neighborhoods. It's when just like with prohibition of alcohol, where I think was still the highest homicide rate in American history was under prohibition of alcohol. And then once they legalized alcohol again, it drastically reduced in the next few years. The same thing with the prohibition of drugs. You create these black markets, you create a lot of like violent crime, and that's what's really destroying these neighborhoods is like the violent gang culture, and it's all built and funded around drugs the black markets for which would not exist if we just called the whole thing off.
It's just calling the whole thing off is so scary politically. Because if you were a guy like Joe Biden that said, I'm going to legalize all drugs, people would fucking turn on you. They'd freak the fuck out.
Yeah, getting the political will up to do it is something. But I mean, you even see it even with this, we got like 100,000 ODs a year now. And so much of it is driven by the fact that people are getting fentanyl in shit that they don't even know that's not supposed to have fentanyl in it because it's in black markets. And Joe Biden is absolutely... I mean, it's hard to like hate him so much now because he's so old and senile. It's hard to even hold him responsible. But his career, he was like probably the worst person on this issue. Joe Biden, since the 80s, was pushing ramp ups in the war on drugs. He challenged Ronald Reagan from the right partnered up with Strom Thurmond and was criticizing Reagan for being too soft on drugs. And then he was the one who authored the crime bill that Bill Clinton signed into law. Yeah. He's got a lot of death and destruction on his old hands.
Yeah, that crime bill. Oof. The whole just war on drugs thing is such a strange issue because logically everyone knows that when you legalize things, and certainly when you decriminalize things, you get a giant drop in violent crime. You get a giant drop in addiction. It's so counterintuitive, but people are so terrified because drugs have been so devastating. Because I think that if we did legalize all drugs and it happened quickly, you're going to have more overdoses. You're going to have more deaths. You're going to have more addicts. You're just going to because there's going to be more access.
Yeah, but
when
when
does it balance out?
Well, I don't know. I think there will be more access for sure, but I think so many of the overdoses now are because people become addicted to pain pills or become addicted to heroin and get fentanyl in it, and you wouldn't have that if drugs were legal. So you would have stuff like there's not a problem with people smoking cigarettes and finding out there was fentanyl in their cigarettes. You know what I mean? Because it's not. But there would be or there could be if it was on the black market and you were just getting it from some gang member. You know?
Yeah.
So it would reduce. I think it would reduce overdoses in that sense. There's no question it's a trade-off. There's no good, perfect solution where there's not any costs. But the major benefit would be you would eliminate the gang violence. Yeah. And already even I think when they and I don't have this numbers right at the top of my head on the front of my head, but the weed trade from Mexico, that used to be the big thing. And I think that's all but gone now.
Not
because
necessarily. It's not. Apparently because there's so many states where marijuana is still illegal.
Right.
Most of the illegal weed is actually being grown on state land by the cartels.
Is that right? Yeah.
Yeah, there's a guy named John Norris. He wrote a book called Hidden War, and he came on the podcast to discuss it. He actually was a game warden and, wanted to have a job checking fishing licenses and stuff, doing game warden stuff. And he detailed it in the book how they found this creek that had been diverted and dried up, and they were trying to they thought maybe a farmer had done this or something, some obstruction. And they traced it to this grow-op that was in the middle of the forest. And his unit became like a tactical unit because they were having gunfights with cartel members. Instead of it being like game warden, now it became like a DEA type situation.
Right.
Where you're running into these public land grow-ops where these guys, they take this area and they level it and they grow weed there. And these guys were camping there and they had guns, and it's wild shit, man. The whole book is incredible, and the stories.
That's very interesting.
So that's 90%, he was saying, of all the illegal marijuana that's being sold in America is coming out of these places. Yeah.
Yeah. This is why I think you just got to call the whole thing off at a certain point. It's been a failure. I mean, we've been doing it for 40-something years?
Yeah.
Or something. I mean, or maybe more than that. Is it 50 years now?
Yeah, I think it's 1970.
72 or something like that. It started,
50 plus years.
Yeah. I mean, it's like, okay, so we fought a war and the drugs won. And now it's time to, just like with the Taliban, it's time to accept.
They keep winning. Like they're winning and they're killing us. Yeah. It's destroying our country. And it's not the legal ones. It's the illegal ones. And the reason why it's destroying it is because they're illegal. Yeah. So it's also propping up the cartels. It's like they just you could walk right over there. People walk over here, walk right over there, and you have literally one of the scariest results of drug prohibition right there, where you have insane crime and insane resources that the cartels have. They control the government. They control cities.
Yep.
It's wild shit, and it's all because of our policies.
And it's interesting that we got the guy in the White House who was the champion of it for those entire 50 years. I mean, maybe he wasn't in the whole 50 years, but he was in for like 40 plus of them.
Yeah.
And he was the great champion of it. And it's so funny that now he runs on diversity. Yeah, but I hired the first vice president who's black or whatever. It's like, yeah, sure, I threw hundreds of thousands of them in cages, but now look at me, I got one right next to me.
Yeah.
And yes, she's an idiot, but okay.
But
I
it's
hired
so
her.
funny how Dylan Mulvaney is like the person they all go to, whether it's Bud Light or the president. Like even the president was getting interviewed by Dylan Mulvaney, which is like, what do you? Why? Like, what is the like? And she's talking about day 300 of womanhood, and Biden's like, bless your heart.
Like, you know, it's so fun. Did you hear the thing where Joe Biden lied and said he was for gay marriage since like the 70s or something like that or whatever
he lies
it was?
all the time.
So he's just making stuff up. But it was so funny because because he's just so old. And you know when old people try to say the politically correct thing, and no matter how they say it, it still comes out like old and wrong. You know, it's just you know, they're just like, colored people could read just as good as me and you, and you're like, oh, dude, that's the most racist thing to say. So he goes. He's telling the story of when he was a kid and his dad, and he saw two gay people kiss, and then he goes, and then one of them walked into the bank. Like they had a job, just like you or me. You know, like he was you're like, yeah, dude, they're people. Like, what do you, this was a revelation to you? Like, it still just sounds so fucked up, but he's trying to be cool.
And what was the thing that he said something about, just like white kids can? He was talking about poor people.
He said, poor kids are just as bright as white kids. And you're like, oh my God. Jesus, the Freudian slips. Like, it's like but it's just also like, you know, in the same way that if any of us had like, you know, our 85-year-old grandpa at the table, every now and then if they say some things, you're going to roll your eyes. You're almost like, yeah, you can't expect him to be with the times on this. You're like, just stop making Biden talk about this stuff. He's not with but the fact that he has to not only do that, but has to be with the latest woke insanity. Yeah. Like that this guy, like that any man in their 80s has got to be like, oh yeah, Dylan Mulvaney, totally. That's a beautiful woman right there. That's what I'm looking at. Beautiful woman. But he's got to like actually do that is just hilarious.
Yeah, it's very interesting. It's really interesting the mental gymnastics that people will put themselves through.
It's really something.
Just the idea that they're not stopping him from running again. I mean, it's just, you can't.
I'm shocked. I thought they were going to replace him as the nominee at the last minute in 2020. I was shocked he did that, and I was sure he'd be a one-term president, and I'm still now not even convinced he's going to be the nominee in 2024. But the more time goes on, like, I guess they're actually doing this.
Well, the fascinating thing is they will not allow, for the primaries, they're not going to allow debates.
Oh, they don't want to let RFK on a stage with Biden.
Yeah.
RFK will rip that old man up.
And then imagine if his voice was good.
It's really a shame.
It is a shame.
It's really the job is really a speaking tour.
Yeah.
And it's a real issue that he has issues speaking, but
he did have surgery recently, and it's better than it was before.
Is it better?
Yeah.
But he's an interesting guy in a lot of ways. And I know people will say you know, because he was a vaccine skeptic way before the COVID vaccine. He's been a skeptic of vaccines in general. And a lot of people say that's like, oh, you know, this is a conspiracy theory or it's too far. But, you know, that argument after COVID is really much weaker than it used to be. Because people are actually like, yeah, I'm listening now. Yes. Now I'm actually kind of listening to that guy.
It seems like there's a playbook, and you guys have been following this playbook forever.
Yes. And I got his speech. His announcement speech last week, he spoke for over an hour, and I mean, it was really fantastic. I don't agree with everything the guy says, but the major theme of his speech was that there is this unholy alliance of big business and big government, and they're working together to screw over the American people. And like, damned if anyone can argue that that's not true. That's just so obviously the case, you know. And he went through this whole thing. He was really great on the stuff on the war in Ukraine and being skeptical about like what the hell are we doing here. Really, really great on the COVID stuff. And he's a Kennedy, and he's not just like one of these like, you know, like peripheral Kennedys, like I married a third cousin type Kennedy. Like he's Bobby Kennedy's kid.
Yeah.
There's something powerful about that, even still, I think.
And it's amazing that we've come so far. We're so far gone that they're not grasping that. Yeah. They're not latching onto that. Like, you want a Democratic president? Like, he could be the guy. But the thing is, they don't want that. They want someone who adheres to the narrative 100% completely, doesn't get off track, is in cahoots with big business and big tech and everything else.
Well, it's just that like the narrative is part of it, but it's the narrative serves the system, you know? So the
Yeah.
problem is that he's kind of outside the system,
Right.
at least to some degree. At least he seems like he is. I don't know. But there's also something to, look, I don't know exactly. In fact, I haven't heard him address it. I'm sure he has, but I don't know exactly where he is on his uncle and his father's, assassinations. But I know that his dad was completely convinced that the JFK assassination was a conspiracy that they weren't telling us about. He did not buy at all into the like Lee Harvey Oswald lone, wolf thing. So it's got to also be, you're a different type of outsider to the system if you believe the CIA killed your uncle.
Yeah.
That's a little bit different than
maybe your
just,
dad,
and maybe
too.
your dad. Yeah. That's a
Yeah.
little bit different than just like, while I disagree with my opponent, I respect his, opinion or something like that.
Yeah.
That's a real like, no, you understand how evil and corrupt this system is. And that's what makes him an attractive candidate to me. I like people who recognize how evil and corrupt the system is because it really is both of those things.
And he's got direct connection to it. I mean,
Yeah.
it was evil to his family.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's just. Have you read The Real Anthony Fauci, his book?
No, I haven't. I've heard him talk about it in
Holy
several different
shit.
interviews. Yeah.
If he hasn't been sued yet, and he hasn't been sued yet for it, like, does that mean it's true? I mean, he's got so many references in that book. If you read that book, just when they talk about what they did during the AIDS pandemic, holy shit, man.
Fauci's a very bad guy.
What they did, I mean, in the book, I mean, I don't want to paraphrase. I want to make sure I'm accurate about this, but they tested vaccines on foster kids, including babies. Like, when you read what they did during the pandemic, and it's spooky fucking shit. Also, like, the application of AZT as a treatment.
Yeah.
That AZT was a chemotherapy medication that was killing people quicker than cancer. It's scary stuff, man. When he talks about Arthur Ashe and Arthur Ashe taking AZT and dying very quickly afterwards, and that Arthur Ashe didn't even like have any symptoms before he got on medication.
Well, I think one of the things that people, a lot of people have woken up to this over the last few years with all of the COVID insanity. And I think a lot of people have woken up to this over, say, the last 20 years of all the disastrous wars in the Middle East, is that it's very easy for them to just be like, oh, look, we have consensus amongst the expert class. Like we have consensus amongst the scientists that we need lockdowns and then we need these vaccine mandates and we need all of this. And this is the science. The scientists agree.
Right.
But then once you actually like look into it a little bit, you realize that it's like, no, it's not that there's consensus amongst the scientists. It's that any scientist that doesn't agree with the consensus gets kicked out. Like they all get excommunicated and silenced. And then, it's just it's this completely corrupt group that is very involved with this money-making machine. And you're like, oh, there's such perverse incentives here. And so it's like, and people realize this when after time, it just gets demonstrated that what they were saying is wrong.
Yes.
Like no one can argue anymore that if you get the COVID vaccine, you can't get or transmit COVID. No one's arguing that anymore because it's just, you can't keep up that lie anymore.
And that was so quick.
Yeah.
It was so quick. I mean, that lie was being pushed on mainstream news just a couple of years ago.
Well, dude, me and you were like talking about this stuff. It's like it seems like not really that long ago, right? That we were having like some conversations where there'd be these clips of what we were saying, and it would be like, look at this COVID misinformation, and now you're like, let's look back at that.
Yeah.
The World Health Organization is now saying that the vaccine shouldn't be given to kids. And the thing you said that was so controversial that Fauci had to comment on it was you were like, for young people, I don't know if I'd really tell you to take this vaccine. Just be really healthy. Say like eat really well, exercise, get a lot of sunlight. That was your dangerous misinformation that you were spreading. Like,
Wild.
let's put that up against. And at the same time, Fauci was saying, if you get the vaccine, you're not going to get COVID. You can't transmit it. You're like, so who is spreading misinformation
Not only
there?
that, they knew it was misinformation because they had never tested it for transmission.
Yes, they knew it. The woman, I'm blanking on her name, but she was on the task force, the original task force in 2020. She's the lady who's always there at the podium with Trump and Fauci.
Birx.
Yes. She said, in like a kind of diplomatic way, but she was like, she goes, I always knew that it wouldn't prevent transmission, and I felt that we overreached when we were making that claim. And you're like, overreached? Lady, all of the policies that you put into place were built around that idea. The whole idea of vaccine mandates and vaccine passports and all of this was all predicated on the idea that it wasn't just your choice. Like, it wasn't just like, oh, you're choosing for your own health risk, that you were protecting other people. That was the whole idea that the whole thing was based on. If that's not true, then there was no justification for this. And millions of people lost their jobs over this.
Yeah.
Not to mention just the amount of people who were just like disenfranchised, like in major cities across the country. You couldn't go to a restaurant or couldn't go to a basketball game or whatever, which may seem less important than the ones who lost their job, but it's still fucked up.
It's all fucked up because it was also incentivizing people to go along with something that they might not have wanted to do.
Yeah.
And then when you see the amount of people that got damaged because of that, both financially, physically, vaccine injuries, ostracized from their communities, how many marriages broke up, how many friendships broke up. I know a lot of people that were skeptical about the COVID vaccine and they were shamed by their friends and they lost contact with those people. They stopped being friends with them.
I know a lot of people who whose mental health really deteriorated during the lockdowns as well.
Oh,
you
yeah.
know?
Without a doubt. There's a lot of people that were already struggling before the pandemic, and that pushed them over the edge.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, it's really like, it's something to look back on it now a few years later and just like how crazy it was that we did this, like the lockdowns, that you were just like, people were at home watching TV to find out from their governor holding a daily press conference telling you what you're allowed to do today. Yeah. That was reality. And if you think about it from like a mental health point of view, what could be worse than to just be like, okay, listen, I want you to stay home. I don't want you to see your friends. I don't want you to go out to a game. I want you to stay home and be terrified of a floating abstraction that can come get you at any point. And on top of that, you're probably also going to be terrified about like your economic security, your financial future, like all of this stuff. It's like the worst thing you could do for people. So yeah, like you said, for people who were like on the edge already, yeah, that's
And then
really
there was
bad.
a lot of like old celebrities who were really terrified of it, who were just calling everybody a fucking moron for not taking it. You fucking idiots. You're going to ruin it all for everyone. Fuck your freedom. All that stuff. You remember that?
Yep.
All that shit is wild. It's so wild to see now.
Yeah, and I do think like my personal view is that I think for the people at the very top, like I really do think there should be criminal charges. I think we should have Nuremberg type trials for what people did. I think it's one of the greatest crimes perpetrated on the American people by the government.
Especially if we funded the research that caused it in the first place.
Which we did. I mean, they can argue, no, we were funding other gain-of-function research at that same lab. But come on, man. We were funding the lab where this virus almost certainly came from. But just saying that at the top level, I think people should be prosecuted. They should go. Fauci should be prosecuted, clearly, at least for lying to Congress, if nothing else.
He out and out lied.
Straight up lied.
And now that's proven.
Yes. But then, like, for other people, like, you can't, I'm not saying everyone who supported the lockdown should, like, go to jail or something. We have to forgive people. But I do think there should be some process where, like, some type of reconciliation. But I don't think people should forget. Like, I don't think people, like the thing you were just saying about Arnold Schwarzenegger and stuff like that and all that. Don't forget what these guys were willing to jump on board with.
Yeah.
Like, and how much further would they have gone?
Right.
You know what I mean? Like they pushed it pretty far and these guys were completely on board. Like, is it really that unthinkable to say if they were like, hey, we're going to round up the unvaccinated and put them into camps, take them away from their family, you know?
Yeah.
Is that...
I don't think so.
Some people would have gone along with it.
Imagine if the pandemic was worse. Imagine if this disease, instead of killing a fraction of 1%, imagine if it killed 5%. People would be on board with it. If it killed 10%, people would be on board with it. It would... I mean,
it's funny because what Sam Harris had that thing. He had a clip where he was saying that basically, like he was making the argument that like, hey, if this thing was worse, we wouldn't have tolerated any of this COVID misinformation.
But here's why that's wrong. Because the vaccine still sucks.
Yeah, no, I mean, if you change all of the fundamentals and you make it a vaccine that's perfect and the thing is worse, then okay, fine. But when he said it, the first thing I'm thinking of, it's like, oh yeah, no, even in your scenario, you guys would have gone full Nazi. Like, that's what would have happened if it was way worse, because you guys wouldn't have just been like light totalitarians.
Right.
You would have gone to like some full dark totalitarian thing.
Yeah.
And so what now? Now you're going to what? We no longer have freedom of speech, and you're going to just, what are you going to do?
Right.
What are you going to do to the person who says, I don't want to get the vaccine now?
And when you eliminate that freedom of speech and you allow that government overreach and control, it never goes away.
Yes.
It never goes away. And the fact that people don't recognize that and they can't just make these logical thoughts about the future. Like, if we do this, what happens if someone gets in power and they're evil and they already have these new controls that we put in place? Like, that was during the NDAA. Remember when Obama was like, we would never, detain people for no reason. Like, yeah, you wouldn't.
As he signed it into law.
Yeah, but just saying that you would never use it, then don't have it.
Yeah.
You should need a fucking warrant. There should be like a reason why someone gets detained. There shouldn't be an indefinite detention.
Yeah,
indefinite.
If people don't know the reference in the NDAA Act, I forget which year it was, but 2011, I think, there was this provision that said that under the auspice of the war on terror, that the government can detain an American citizen and hold them indefinitely with no charges if they decide that you are in some way connected to some type of group. And Obama signed it into law, but he put a signing statement on the bill and said, I do not plan on invoking this privilege, and we do not plan on detaining anyone. But you're like, but that's not enough to veto the bill? Like, that's like, oh, yes, this bill does technically repeal the Bill of Rights, but I'm still going to sign it. But you don't worry about that.
It should be illegal. It should be illegal to go against the ideas that founded this country.
Well, the thing is, what's weird is that it is illegal. I mean, like, the Constitution is the supreme law of the land. This is what they all hold their hands up to and take an oath to swear to protect and defend. But the thing is that it doesn't really matter. Like, the thing about laws is that they're just words written on a piece of paper. So it doesn't really matter what's technically legal or illegal. What matters is what people can get away with doing. Like, Obama murdered American citizens with no charges. 2 of them, at least. That is illegal. That is very clearly illegal.
You're talking about drone strikes.
Yes,
on
it was
suspected.
Well,
terrorists.
it was Anwar al-Awlaki and his son. Now, with the son, who was like 14 or 15, they came back and killed him a few weeks after they killed the father. Now, I believe they claim he was not the target of the drone strike, like that he was just collateral damage. Still, I would argue should be illegal. But most people don't buy that because it's just like seems very obvious that they were trying to take him out. But the Anwar al-Awlaki guy certainly had been radicalized and I think had sworn allegiance to Al-Qaeda. But he's still an American citizen. And the rules are, if you're an American citizen, are you have to be charged with a crime, and then you get a lawyer in a suit and a judge in a robe and 12 people who are like pooled randomly, and they decide if you're guilty of a crime. And by the way, he was in Yemen at the time, but they can charge you and have a trial, and if you don't show up to it, they still, you know what I mean, like convict you of it.
Right. But
there's a whole process. You don't just have the president drop a sky robot on you because he says you're guilty of these crimes. And it's funny when people they'll still talk about Obama be scandal-free administration. What was his biggest scandal? He wore a tan suit or something, and you're like, how about them murdering American citizens without charges? That was a pretty big scandal, in my opinion.
And what about the people that got killed by drones that were totally innocent, which is somewhere in the range of 90%?
It was over 90%. There was one report that came out about that I think said somewhere in the neighborhood of like 95% of the people killed in drones were collateral damage, were not the targets of the drones. These, people like to think of these things as they call them precision strikes, but like
surgical.
They're not surgical strikes. They're bombs that blow shit up. You know what I mean? And a lot of innocent people die. And then out of those, it's even higher than that because what they're counting as the target of the strikes just means you were put on a list, which does not always mean that you were actually a terrorist, because what happens is a lot of times they're working with these groups on the ground. They kind of bribe them to rat out who's a terrorist, but a lot of times those groups are just giving you like their enemy. Right. You know what I mean? Like someone they want to get killed, or they're just coming up with names because they want you to keep bribing them. The whole thing was such a clusterfuck, man. And some of it is still going on to this day, although now we've decided to flirt with an even much more dangerous nuclear war. But yeah, and even the drone bombings weren't the worst of what Obama did. The worst of what he did was overthrowing Muammar Gaddafi in Libya, funding the anti-Assad rebels and starting a civil war in Syria, funding the Saudis and giving them the green light and refueling their fighter jets so they could genocide the people of Yemen for 8 freaking years. That was the worst of it. And just goddamn tragedy.
Yeah, but he talks so well.
He gave a hell of a speech.
Great president.
He really gave a hell of a
Great
speech.
statesman.
It's people forget how good he was. The job aged him a lot too. So he wasn't as good at the end as he was at the beginning. But if you go listen to his it's nonsense. It's mostly just like gooey nothingness. But if you listen to his speech at the 2008 Democratic National Convention, his official acceptance speech, it's just like it's a masterclass on public speaking. He would just say these things even when they were like meaningless, but he would like I remember I'm trying to think if I can remember. He has this thing where he's like, I love this country, and so do you, and so does John McCain. The men and women who have fought and died in our armed forces have been Democrats and Republicans and independents, but they did not die defending a red America or a blue America. They died defending the United States of America. It's like, but the way he would deliver it, it's so like, it really just tugs at your like insides and makes you like, God damn. And then after a little while, you walk away and you're like, wait, but what did he say?
Right.
You're like, oh, that was nothing. I mean, it was nothing. It wasn't like,
Well, that's a
he did say
uniting
some good
thing.
things when he ran, though. He did. I mean, he ran on some really good policies, like ending the wars and closing Guantanamo Bay and repealing the Patriot Act and restoring the rule of law and ending torture and all. The shame is he did none of it. And I think that's like. I go back and forth. You could pick like any president really of my lifetime. You'd be like, who ruined the 21st century for America? You could certainly make an argument for George W. Bush and Dick Cheney, but there's something about Obama. I think I put probably more blame than anyone else on him because he was supposed to be the response. And like that's the way this system of government is supposed to work, or so they say, is like, well, we have these democratic processes, so you can if you're upset with these guys, you can kick the bums out and vote for these guys. And obviously, we all know it's like then they narrow it down to 2 teams, and those 2 teams happen to have the same policy when it comes to the military-industrial complex or the banking-industrial complex or the pharmaceutical-industrial complex. They're all on the same side. So that's how the uniparty works. Like no matter who you vote in, they're all supposed to be. But the country was so furious with George W. Bush and Dick Cheney, who handed him 2 disastrous failed wars and the worst financial crisis in 100 years. And they were so furious with them that they voted the most opposite thing they could. This junior senator, constitutional lawyer, brilliant, articulate, everything that was the opposite of George W. Bush. And he was supposed to be the answer. And then he got in and just continued the Bush administration. It might as well have been the 3rd and 4th term of George W. Bush. And that is where the country spins out, to me. That's where you end up with Trump.
I bet if you were friends with Obama, if you really were friends with him, if you could have a couple of drinks, maybe spark up a joint and talk to that guy, if he really trusted you and knew you were never going to tell anybody, I bet he could tell you some shit.
Yeah, I bet you're right.
I'm more of like a believer in what Putin has said about this when he talks about how he's been through 3 different presidents and they all have these plans.
Yeah.
And he goes, and they get into office and people that are dressed in a suit like mine come in, sit them down and tell them how everything works. If you think about how much access to the real understanding of how the government works is ever going to be given to a junior senator who's running for president, I bet very little. I bet very little. I bet there's no speeches. I bet there's no conversation about it. I think once you get in, once you're in the Pentagon, once you're in the Oval Office, once you're meeting with these people and you realize like, holy shit, and then you realize this machine behind you that's pushing all the buttons and you're a spokesperson for this machine.
I think this might be why they hated Trump so much because I think that speech just didn't work on him.
Yeah, he's like
yeah. There's this story, and I don't know if this is true or not, but it sounds so true. I think it was in Bob Woodward's book. I can't remember where it was, but this may not be true, but it just sounds so true that I guess after Trump won the election and he goes to Camp David, I think this is still while he was president-elect. It might have been right after he got in. I'm not sure. But I guess he goes and he's like at this like CIA like thing, and they said that he came in and there's like a wall for like agents who died in the line of duty, and they said Trump just walks in and stands right in front of it, which is like crazy disrespectful to do. And he said he just starts talking to the room about how tremendous his victory was. Like he just gets there and he's like, everyone said we were going to lose, but we won big and we won both. And it just sounds like, I don't know if that really happened, but it so sounds like that really happened. And you can just imagine all these CIA agents just like, we got to get rid of this guy. But like what you said about the stuff, like the speech they give, who knows? It's a real interesting thing to think about.
I would love to talk to Trump about that.
It's a great Bill Hicks, Bill Hicks bit.
The bit about showing the Kennedy assassination from an angle you've never seen before.
Such a great bit. But I will say that there definitely are what we know is there definitely are forces that kind of roll over presidents. And even with Obama, like, you know, if you remember the story with the General McChrystal. Mm-hmm. And how he went to the media and told them. This is the guy who Michael Hastings ended up getting fired because he was, you know, talking shit about Obama to him at a bar.
Maybe whacked.
Well, you know, he just was driving too fast that night, I guess. I don't know. I don't know the story there.
Let's talk about that one in a minute.
Sure. I'm not sure if that is like what happened with that, because I have heard that like his brother said he started drinking again or something like that. So I don't know the details of that story exactly.
I would drink too if assassins were
yes,
after me.
if I was working on uncovering CIA corruption, I'd probably
not
be
just
drinking.
working on uncovering CIA corruption, but you were embedded with these soldiers and they got comfortable with you.
Yeah,
and then you printed all the things that they said.
But what's very interesting about that is that it was a really important story, because it makes you recognize that, like, wow, even these like very high ranking generals are talking shit about the president, like this fucking asshole doesn't know what he's doing and that.
Right.
But so McChrystal, before that interview, he went to the media because Obama, I guess, gave him the surge he wanted, but he put an end date on it. And it was like, but our troops will be out by this date. And that pissed him off. And so he went to the media and told them that, you know, he said, I haven't had any contact with the president and we haven't been talking since this and that. And then the media was like, put all this pressure on Obama, like, you're not even talking to your guy over there in Afghanistan, and basically kind of tied his hands politically so that he kind of just had to continue the war. And there's a lot of stuff like that happens. And with Trump, I mean, it was reported that they lied to him about the number of troops in Syria. And when he said he wanted to pull the troops out, they lied to him and said there were far less than there actually were. Wow. Like they're just bragging about this. It's really you realize that this thing is all fake. It's not run the way people think it's run.
Yeah, and that is, if anything, I mean, even if you're a Trump hater, you have to recognize that he exposed that. He showed us that in a way that we'd never seen before, because they were so furious at him. They were willing to like show their powers. They were almost like witches that start casting spells. And you're like, oh.
Well, what's weird is that so many of the Trump haters, which like be a Trump hater, it's fine. There's a lot to criticize there, but like so many of the Trump haters will talk about like you know, undermining our democracy, and he incited an insurrection against like this democratic republic or whatever. But then you'll see things like, look, this just came out within the last week and a half or so, that we now know that it was Blinken, the current Secretary of State, before he came in, who requested that the CIA put together this letter that said there were 50 intelligence experts who had determined that the Hunter Biden laptop had all the earmarks of Russian disinformation, you know, just to help Joe Biden win. Now, forget even the fact that the intelligence agencies are interfering in an election. They're doing it to undermine who was the current president of the United States of America. The guy they work for.
They're also openly lying.
Yes. I mean, all of these are big problems.
But the fact that that's not freaking people out, that they openly lied about that.
Yeah, it's. I mean, all of this stuff is very troubling. And then, of course, you know.
I mean, that's dictatorship.
Well, that's
not supposed to be how America works. And if you're a guy that's involved in doing that, like, Jesus Christ, how much power do you need? Like, you can't do that. It's so deeply un-American. To lie to the American people about something that might affect an election is crazy. And to justify it because you want your guy to get in there. Like, man, that's a crazy abuse of power. And the problem with that is I think the FBI is very important. I think the CIA is very important. I think all these people that are understanding what's going on in the world and with no filter, they have all the access to information. If you don't have that in this world, this climate that we live in, I think you're fucked. But you can't do that because that's going to undermine everybody else's understanding of what you're willing to do. So all the good work that they do, people are going to mistrust it. There's a lot of people that have lost their faith in the intelligence community because of things like this.
Well, and because of the stuff that they do. I mean, it's like it's not, but it's kind of like.
But I think a lot of those people are fucking patriots, which is so fucked.
Yeah, I'm sure there are some.
But they're stuck in a system.
Yes, but that's the problem. Is that it's like it's like when people say they're losing. That people are losing trust in these institutions. It's like, well, yes, but it's because they've found out what the institutions are doing. It's like if your wife found out that you're cheating all over her, and you're like, well, this is a problem because she's losing trust in me. It's like, well, yeah, but she's not. She shouldn't trust you because she found out what you're doing. You know what I mean? Like it's so.
But isn't it who's going to watch the Watchmen? Isn't that it? Because when you have any kind of a position like that, where you have just insane power over information and policy and what gets done, and no one is managing it from outside of it. That's saying, hey, what are you doing? No, that's the Constitution. You can't do that. Don't do that. There's no oversight where there's someone who is completely objective, is loyal only to the Constitution and the Bill of Rights, and lays out the rules. These are the fucking rules for America. Like, you can't operate outside of these rules just because you want your guy to win. That's un-American. That's as un-American as anything else that you could be prosecuted for. That we get. Think about what Assange did. What they're trying to get after is what's more un-American. Lying to the American people or exposing the American people to information that has been hidden from them that's deeply disturbing, that would change their opinion on things.
And that's criminal. I mean, expose actual war crimes.
What is America? That's the thing. What are we? Are we the shining light of the world? Are we this incredible garden of creativity and innovation? Because we're that too.
Yeah.
We're a wild, fucking amazing experiment in self-government. But we got to stick to the fucking rules. And if you get people in power and no one is able to stop them from not sticking to the rules, and then when they do violate the law, there's no consequences, we forgot what it is to be American. It's not good for them. It's not good for us. It's not good for any of us. We're all in this together. You can't do that.
Yeah, well, like you said, we are kind of all of those things.
Yeah.
We are this it's like in the wise words of the great Eminem, I'm all for America, fuck the government. We're
not
great.
Even fuck the government, fuck the bad parts of the government. There's people in the government that are trying to do the right thing. I know there are. There's people in the government that are patriots. There's people in the government that really want this place to get better. You don't think Bernie Sanders wants the government to get better? I think he definitely wants the world to get better. I think that guy realistically wants the world to be a better place. I think Tulsi Gabbard realistically wanted the world to be a better place. She was in government. She was a congresswoman for 10 years.
But look what the system did to a good congresswoman.
Yeah, but you know what? She recognized that she wasn't willing to be compromised, and she removed herself from what she thought was a corrupt organization.
Right, but then so what does that say about Bernie Sanders? But I'm just saying that's kind of the way the system works. So it chews up and spits out the people who have some integrity. Not all of them. There are some who stay in. But there is some. I mean, Tulsi Gabbard got called a Russian asset by Hillary Clinton, by the establishment of her own party.
Wild.
A woman who was embedded in a medical unit in Iraq.
Served twice.
Really saw the cost of war.
Really saw it. Developed that white streak in her hair from that.
Yeah, the war that Hillary Clinton lied us into and voted for. And then she turns around and calls her, like, she
Russian
says she
asset.
betrayed the country.
It's wild that they think they can say that because they used to be able to say that with no recourse. They're operating in a world where there was no internet. They still have that programming from the world of no internet.
Yeah, and also operating in a world, it's kind of like what you were talking about with like the CIA getting so much power that it just becomes so corrupted. And I think a lot of the story of America and how we've just become so degraded is really kind of goes back to the collapse of the Soviet Union and the fact that what Charles Krauthammer called the unipolar moment, that in the 90s it was like, oh, for the first time ever, that's it. America is the lone superpower. And this really is like what all of those guys said, like all the neoconservatives, like the Project for a New American Century and those guys, they were like, this is our moment. We can do whatever we want. We are the sole power in the world. And what they wanted to do was a lot of really awful things. But it almost created so much power and so much hubris that they just think they can get away with everything. Like there's no limit on what they can do. And it turns out that actually you're not gods. You're just people. And all of this carefully perfect, like, okay, well, this is what we'll do, and then this is what's going to happen. We'll overthrow Saddam Hussein, and then democracy will sweep the region. And it's like, no, it's actually not going to work out that way. And to me, that's the whole story of the war in Ukraine right now, too. It was all like, we've got this perfect plan that we'll just keep expanding NATO and we'll just keep interfering. We'll have these color-coded revolutions. We'll take over more and more, and we will be the dominant force. And it's like, yeah, well, there's consequences to that. That doesn't just work as perfectly as you planned it out. Just like with all the wars in the Middle East.
And what's happening now is very spooky.
Mm-hmm.
It's really spooky because so many people are dying, and they're trying to put a positive spin on it. It's like, what is the end game here? How does this end?
Well,
how is there not negotiations? And when Trump says that it would have never happened when he was in office, and he would be able to stop it now, like people listen to that and like that's dangerous too. It's dangerous to have this one solution. Like if he's going to fix it, he's going to fix it. Hey, what if he can't? What if he can't? What if this is a thing that's just like Eisenhower warned everyone about? What if this is a thing? What if this is a fucking whole business? Just like we're in the business of telling jokes, people who make pies are in the business of pie making, and people who make war are in the business of war making. And once that machine gets moving, I mean, it's like a tank with no brakes.
It's certainly very hard to stop it.
And we haven't figured out to stop it.
We haven't figured out how to yet. And Donald Trump can say that, and I would say I think his rhetoric has been much better on this than Joe Biden's, and at least he's talking about negotiating.
Do you think he could stop it? You think there's a way to somehow or another? Does the president have that kind of power where the president could go in and say, I want to meet with Putin, I want to organize a negotiation, I want to end this right now?
He could say it.
And then,
and then see what I don't know.
He would have to get NATO to pull their arms back.
Well, the president could certainly has a lot of leverage there. You know what I mean? Like,
how much power do you think they really genuinely have?
It's an interesting question. I don't know exactly.
I think that's what Putin's point was about getting into office.
Yeah, I think that's what he was saying, and it does seem like there's a lot of truth to that. I also, one of the things that makes me skeptical about how great Trump would be on this is that Trump wasn't very good on this issue while he was in. I mean, Trump was the one who sent the weapons into Ukraine. This is, when he got impeached, it was famously over the Ukraine gate thing. Was he said they said it was a quid pro quo where he was holding up the weapons, putting pressure on Zelensky to investigate the Bidens. But the part of that story that doesn't get talked about that much is that then he caved and he gave them the weapons. And this was a major reason, I think, why this war ended up happening. And what they said at the time was that they were sending in the weapons to deter the Russians. And so either they're really bad at deterrence, or it actually was a provocation, because it certainly didn't deter Vladimir Putin from going in. And I think that, and Trump also got us out of the INF treaty. He also, he was not good on this. In fact, I think he was trying to prove how much he wasn't a Russian agent. You know what I mean? That he was kind of like being more hawkish toward Russia.
Interesting.
To show you what a Russian agent I'm not.
Oh, no.
So I don't know. I don't know what he would do. It certainly couldn't be any worse than what the plan is right now. And, to your point that you made, because I know last time I was on the show, I talked a lot about this, the like kind of the cause of this war in Ukraine, and I put a lot of blame on American foreign policy, and it went super viral, and I heard back from some people who disagreed. But the funny thing about it is that it's not like when I was talking about like NATO expansion and how much of a provocation this was to the Russians. When you were talking about like the good people in government, it's not like it's just kooks or, you know, crazy libertarians like me. It was not just like Ron Paul and Noam Chomsky and Pat Buchanan, like the outsiders who were all against NATO expansion. But the list of people within the government, within the national security apparatus, who completely opposed NATO expansion is really impressive and long. There's a lot of like really wise people within the government who were completely against NATO expansion in the 90s when it first started. At least 3 secretaries of defense, Robert McNamara, Robert Gates, George W. Bush and Barack Obama's Secretary of Defense, William Perry, who was Bill Clinton's Secretary of Defense and the Secretary of Defense at the time, they all opposed it in like the strongest possible language and all explicitly for the reason that this will provoke a conflict with Russia. And they were like, George Kennan, who was the founder of the containment strategy, the old school Cold Warrior. There's this great interview he gave with Thomas Friedman from the New York Times. You can find it online. And it's in the 90s when they're doing the first round of NATO expansion. And he is like furious. Like his anger comes through the page when you're reading it. Because he's like, what are you guys doing? We won the Cold War. We won. And now you're picking a fight with Russia, and this isn't Vladimir Putin's Russia. This was Boris Yeltsin, you know. And he's like, these aren't the Soviets. These aren't the communists. These are the heroes who overthrew them. Why are we picking a fight with them? And he was a Cold Warrior. He was like, you're throwing away my life's work. And he said, and this was a really, you know, a crazy prediction, really ominous. He said, the people who are advocating expanding NATO are going to continue advocating expanding it and expanding it and expanding it. And then there will be a Russian reaction. And then when there's the Russian reaction, they're going to say, see, that's proof that we have to keep expanding it. And damn, if he wasn't right. If he wasn't right about that. And but one more little detail on this, because this is really interesting, is so there's in 2008, in February of 2008, there was a private cable that the current CIA head, Burns, Bill Burns, who's currently the head of the CIA, at the time he was the ambassador to Russia. And so he sent a private message to Condoleezza Rice, who was the Secretary of State at the time. And this, the only reason we know about this is because of the heroic Julian Assange dumped this. So this was not for the public. This is like what they were saying to each other. And this memo was titled "Niet means Niet." And it was about Ukrainian entry into NATO, because this had been floated out for a while. Yeah, there you go. Basically, the whole piece is this: the current CIA director telling Condoleezza Rice that this, and he's saying it in diplomatic language.
Read it for us.
Yeah. So he says, Ukraine and Georgia's NATO aspirations not only touch a raw nerve in Russia, they engender serious concerns about the consequences for stability in the region. Not only does Russia perceive encirclement and efforts to undermine Russia's influence in the region, but it also fears unpredictable and uncontrolled consequences, which would seriously affect Russian security interests. Experts tell us that Russia is particularly worried that the strong divisions in Ukraine over NATO membership, with much of the ethnic Russian community against membership, could lead to a major split involving violence or at worst civil war. In that eventuality, Russia would have to decide whether to intervene, a decision Russia does not want to have to face. So this is, now there's another memo that comes out later that year where he says, and it's a really interesting thing where he said, Ukrainian entry into NATO is the brightest of all red lines. And Burns says to Condoleezza Rice, again, not to the American public, just to let the Secretary of State know, like, this is what I'm saying. He goes, I've spoken to everyone over here. He goes, from the craziest right-wingers to Putin's sharpest liberal critics, and it is unanimous to a man. They all agree that Ukrainian entry into NATO is the brightest of red lines, that this is a direct threat to Russia. You cannot do this. In the same way Jack Kennedy was saying, you cannot put missiles in Cuba. You cannot bring Ukraine into your military alliance. That was Putin's position. Then this is what they were telling him. And 3 months after that memo that we were just reading, So this was in February. They had the Bucharest summit where NATO announced that Georgia and Ukraine were coming into NATO. And this is what it's like our ambassador to Russia told our Secretary of State, do not do this. And then they went, we're just announcing that we're going to do it. And 3 months after that was the war in Georgia, because they announced Georgia and Ukraine were coming in. And then Georgia got ballsy because they felt like they had the backing of the West, and they attacked a breakaway province, South Ossetia. And they had Russian peacekeepers there, and Vladimir Putin responded. That was like the first real response. And he went to war with Georgia over that. And then, like the stuff we talked about last time is when in 2014, when there was the coup backed by the West in Ukraine. It's what I like about these segments too is people can argue with this, because I know there are people arguing with me. The last time I was here, if you remember, we played the video of Gideon Rose just bragging about this. And he was like, dude, it's not me. That's the CIA director's words. Yeah. That's Gideon. That's the editor of Foreign Affairs magazine saying this. This is what people in the government were saying. And one more note that I'll say is that Bill Clinton, Secretary of Defense, he wrote about this in 2015. So this is after the coup in Ukraine, the Maidan Revolution, and after Putin took Crimea. And he basically said that this is all my fault. And that his biggest regret was that he didn't resign over NATO expansion. I think he said his biggest regret was that he didn't do everything he could to stop it, and that he didn't ultimately resign over it, because this was destined to be the future. That it was people will say, I know people will argue with me on this, and they'll say but NATO is just a defensive alliance. So why should Vladimir Putin care if we expand this defensive alliance? And it's yeah, it's a defensive alliance, except for all the times it's not. Except for all the times it fights aggressive wars like in Serbia or Libya or Afghanistan. Other than that, I guess, they claim it's a defensive alliance. But from Vladimir Putin's perspective, this isn't a defensive voluntary alliance. This is the European wing of the American empire, the most war-hungry country in the world, who's started 7 wars in the last 20 years and slaughtered millions of people. From his perspective, when you put dual-use rocket launchers in Poland, that's not we're just trying. The official reason is we're just trying to make sure that Iran can't nuke Europe with the nukes that they don't have. But from Putin's perspective, he's no, you're trying to cut down on the time it would take for a nuclear weapon to hit Moscow. And so, again, it's not that Putin's a good guy, because he's not. And it's not that he's justified in invading Ukraine. He's not. And all the stories of horrible shit that you've heard that he's done there, he's probably done a lot of them. But man, it's just that all these guys, these same dumb neocons who had this policy to remake the Middle East, they're the same ones who also had the policy to expand NATO all the way to Russia's border. And man, was just the dumbest, most reckless policy ever. That's now put us in a position where we are closer to a risk of World War III and nuclear war than we've ever been in my life. And for what? For what? To make sure that the Donbass region is ruled by Kiev rather than Moscow? Is that really worth it?
Jesus Christ. And you know what I didn't consider until this all broke out? When I started looking at the borders of Russia. When people are explaining why this is so important and why control of Crimea and why control of all these places is so important, once you look at what used to be the Soviet Union, you realize there's all these countries that are connected to them. People can just invade anywhere. Mm-hmm. The United States has a very unique position in the world. North America's position in the world, just where we are, separated by oceans.
Right.
Up until these hypersonic weapons, that was a barrier. It was a huge barrier.
And it's still a barrier to conventional,
yes.
Warfare. I
don't think we really have to worry about that.
I agree.
Now.
Yes.
We have to worry about wild shit.
Yes.
This is what freaks me out about this whole UFO thing. I wonder how many of those fucking things that we're seeing is a government who's reached some form of technology that we're not aware of yet.
Yeah.
And how many of them are ours, and how many of them are China's? How many of them are Russia's? Do those exist? I don't know. I mean, if they exist, I would think China more than anyone. because their technological capabilities are fucking so high
Yeah,
level.
but I think Russia's put a lot into that stuff also.
I'm
so I don't know.
sure. Who
I don't
fucking
know.
knows?
Putin claims like he's developed like all of these crazy, things over the last few years. That's really that basically he said that once NATO kept expanding so much that they left him no choice but to develop faster and crazier missiles and different technologies. And it's just like it's weird because I've heard a lot of people. I've heard people on this show and on lots of other shows say that the big concern they have is Vladimir Putin winning the war, taking all of Ukraine, or just keeping the parts that he wants or something like that. And that then he might be like, oh, hey, I can get away with it. I'll take Poland or whatever.
Right.
Now, that to me seems very far-fetched. Like he's having enough trouble just taking Ukraine. I really doubt he's moving on Poland next. But it's like, okay, I understand kind of in theory where that concern is. But what about the concern if he loses? Like, what if he's humiliated on his own border and Russia is completely destroyed and humiliated? What if like he's attacked within Russia? What then? What if he's convinced that he's done and he's going to be overthrown or he's going to die? To me, that's actually the most dangerous scenario because really nobody's probably going to launch the first nuclear strike unless they're already convinced they're dead anyway. You know what I mean? Yeah. And then it's like, all right, you're going to take me out, I'm bringing you with me type deal.
Right.
And to me, that's the biggest concern. What you want to find here is like an off-ramp where everyone can save face a little bit. Yeah. You know what I mean? Like everyone can go home and tell their own people, like, we did the job, like a justification somehow. And it really... It's got to involve like negotiating some type of compromise.
And what if he does get overthrown and Russia becomes a failed state?
That's a pretty dangerous scenario too.
Imagine Russia becomes like Libya, because when they overthrew Muammar Gaddafi, Libya fell apart.
Yep.
They have open air slave markets where you can auction slaves off. You could watch them on YouTube. Libya is terrifying.
Well, that's why it's so crazy that because you'll hear people like like Lindsey Graham and like idiots like that will talk about like if Putin's overthrown, like almost like it's a given that things are better then. And you're like, how? Even if it didn't go to like a failed state like Libya, like how do you know it's not just like a far worse right-wing dictator who comes up and takes over? You know what I mean? Like why is it's not? If there's one thing we've learned from the 20th and 21st centuries, it's like sometimes you can overthrow a government and it can be much worse than the one that you overthrow. Governments were overthrown after World War I in Russia and Germany.
Yeah.
And then came in Lenin, Stalin, and Hitler, right? Like it can get a lot worse, even if it's not a Gaddafi, failed state type deal, which is also much worse. But you could be looking at something, that's far worse than what we have right now.
But isn't it amazing that that's taken place so many times, and yet we still have this idea that overthrowing them or getting rid of our enemy that's the solution to the problem?
Yeah, it's unbelievable.
Even the fucking Game of Thrones kings handle it better.
Yeah, they really.
I mean, they fucking got together and worked shit out.
Here's when Obama said that the greatest regret of his presidency was not thinking about what would happen the day after they overthrew Gaddafi. And you're like, but you didn't. Like we just did it in Iraq. You didn't.
Yeah,
that wasn't your thought.
You
didn't think maybe
it'll go crazy.
Yeah, this could
do
be
we even
bad.
have journalists in Libya now?
I don't think so. I mean, maybe, I don't know. I mean, they've done a few pieces on like the open air slave markets. I haven't seen anything in a few years.
But who's running Libya?
So I don't think anyone's running Libya. Libya is like basically warring tribes.
Jesus Christ.
Yeah.
And the only way someone's going to take control is the biggest warlord.
That's usually how it goes.
And what are their resources? Is it drugs? Sudan militants spark huge risk in lab with samples of deadly viruses. Oh, terrific.
Wonderful.
Terrific.
Wonderful.
We just happen to have deadly viruses laying around where there's a revolution.
It's interesting if you go back and read these guys. Like I was talking about the Project for a New American Century. Have you've heard of those that before? It was like
I've heard
a think
it from
tank.
you.
Yeah, it was a think tank in the 90s. It fueled a lot of the 9/11 conspiracy guys, like even some of the kooky guys, it fueled a lot of them because it was basically this, it was a think tank. Its founding signatories were like the Bush administration. It was all the neocons in the 90s who were out. So it was Robert Kagan and, like Bill Kristol and Dick Cheney and, like all the Paul Wolfowitz, all the kind of like neocons who ended up taking power in George W. Bush's administration. And they laid out their plans for what they wanted to do. And one of their plans involved overthrowing Saddam Hussein in Iraq and fighting multiple wars and NATO expansion in Europe. And so the 9/11 conspiracy theorists would jump on this and go, aha, this is why they brought the towers down, just so they could get the war in Iraq that they always wanted. Whereas I think the simpler explanation was just like they took advantage of the opportunity when it came and realized they could get what they wanted. But regardless, there's no debate. They're on record. They wanted it back in the 90s. And so basically what it's about, it's what the title is. It's a project for a new American century. And they're like, hey, we're in the 90s here. The Soviet Union has fallen. The 20th century was the century of America. And now what's our plan for the next century? What's the plan for the new American century? And they actually say in one of the most famous policy papers, it's really something to say, is they go, look, we have no real threat to our vital interests right now, or no real threats to America, our dominance right now. And so what we need to do is fight wars in multiple theaters. So we need to go and now show our dominance to the rest of the world. And so they're actually saying, if you read between the lines, not that much, they're like, we don't need to fight a war, but let's go fight him. Let's go fight him anyway. And this is what happens. They won. Like all the wise people in government who were opposed to them lost, and all the dumb George W. Bushes and Joe Bidens won. And they got their way. And we're living through the results of it. And you're like, oh, great. Isn't this wonderful?
Do you remember when that general, was it Wesley
Clark.
Wesley Clark, that's right. Wesley Clark told this reporter in this interview that, like, find that interview because it's so fascinating.
You said 5 countries in 7 years, or
and
7
he was
countries
like,
in 5 years.
what are we doing?
Yeah.
And, he's this decorated general who's being presented with this plan. And let's play this because this has not been discussed enough.
This can never be discussed enough.
It can never be discussed enough. And it's all out there and you're not hearing it. And this is the fact that journalists aren't like putting this in everyone's face. This very information that you're giving out today.
Well, the good ones are, to be fair. I mean, like the Glenn Greenwalds and the Aaron Mateys and the Matt Taibbis, they're doing a great job on this stuff.
Coincidentally, all independent.
Yes, and coincidentally, all vilified by the establishment.
And weren't independent initially. And these guys have all had to stick to their principles and leave. So listen to this, because this is very fucking wild.
About 10 days after 9/11, I went through the Pentagon and I saw Secretary Rumsfeld and Deputy Secretary Wolfowitz. I went downstairs just to say hello to some of the people on the Joint Staff who used to work for me. And one of the generals called me and he said, "Sir, you got to come in. You got to come in and talk to me a second." I said, "Well, you're too busy." He said, "No." He says, "We've made the decision. We're going to war with Iraq." This was on or about the 20th of September. I said, "We're going to war with Iraq. Why?" He said, "I don't know." He said, "I guess they don't know what else to do." So I said, "Well, did they find some information connecting Saddam to Al-Qaeda?" He said, No. He says, "There's nothing new that way. They've just made the decision to go to war with Iraq." He said, "I guess it's like we don't know what to do about terrorists, but we've got a good military and we can take down governments." And he said, "I guess if the only tool you have is a hammer, every problem has to look like a nail." So I came back to see him a few weeks later, and by that time we were bombing in Afghanistan. I said, "Are we still going to war with Iraq?" And he said, "Oh, it's worse than that." He said, he reached over on his desk, he picked up a piece of paper, he said, I just got this down from upstairs, meaning the Secretary of Defense's office today, and he said, "This is a memo that describes how we're going to take out 7 countries in 5 years. Starting with Iraq and then Syria, Lebanon, Libya, Somalia, Sudan, and finishing off Iran."
Sudan.
Yeah. And you know, I mean, they haven't. It's not like that plan was followed perfectly to a T, but a lot of it sure was. And it's pretty crazy to see him. By the way, I don't think he needed to grab Amy Goodman's piece of paper there. Which was a weird thing. Like he goes, look, they showed me a piece of paper just like this, and just takes her paper.
Just like
she's like
regular paper.
She's like, you could have just told the story without you didn't really need that visual aid.
Yeah, why did you?
You will see on her face for a second. She's like, that's all my notes and stuff is on there. Like I have all my next questions. Anyway,
that's such a good point. Piece of paper, just like this one.
It's a weird thing. It's a very military guy type thing to do though. This weird kind of alpha. Kind of let me just take your shit right here and show you up here. Anyway, but it's insane that this was just said. And that's not just like if we didn't have such a corrupt press, how do they not talk about that every day?
Every day.
Why does that never come up? It's as we fought all of these wars, no one went, but this is exactly what I heard Mr. Four-Star General tell me was your plan. And you've never come to the American people and said, this is my plan. You're just so. And what's really interesting about it, right, is it just reveals this the way propaganda works. Because if you think about it, we start fighting the war in Afghanistan. We're in the war in Afghanistan by late 2001. It's not till 2003 we're in Iraq, right? And then it's not till 2010 that we're in Libya. 2012 we're in Syria, and then in Yemen, then in all the. And it's each time they had their own little propaganda story for why we had to go into this war now. And you're like, no, motherfucker, this was always planned. You decided in 2001 you were doing this. So don't tell me this is because Gaddafi's about to go genocidal, or because Saddam has weapons of mass destruction, or because Bashar al-Assad is killing his own people. It's no. This is just your latest little excuse now for the war that you already wanted to do. And that's how this shit really works, man. It's they decide they want to fight these wars. Then they make up a bullshit excuse that they tell the American people. Then these weapon companies rake in hundreds of billions of dollars in profits, and babies get slaughtered. That's what really happens. Innocent men, women, and children die, get exploded to death, starve to death, get displaced. It's just the most evil shit in the world.
And we want to think of ourselves as the good guys.
Well, that's by the way, that's the essence of my point with the whole thing in Ukraine too, is that it's I'm not, because people go oh, you're spreading, Russian propaganda. My loyalty is to Vladimir Putin or something like that. Ridiculous. But it's no, can you at least, even if you support the war in Ukraine, let's say you're we have to continue this proxy war of choice in Ukraine. We have to fund Ukraine all the way to the end. Fine. Can you at least acknowledge that our politicians are the biggest hypocrites in the fucking world when they say things like Vladimir Putin's a war criminal? Vladimir Putin invaded a sovereign nation. Come on, man. Did you ever see, by the way, and again, it's pretty entertaining to me, but Vladimir Putin, he gave 2 speeches, I think, when he first invaded in 2022. But he did one where he ran down the list of presidents. And he did one where he was he needled Bill Clinton for his war in Serbia. And he was he goes, well, there's an ethnic minority being oppressed, so we have to go to war, right, Bill Clinton? And then he goes, we got to check out about weapons of mass destruction, right, George W. Bush? And then went down the list of and the point he's essentially making, and he's kind of right about it, and he's you have no leg to stand on to tell me that I can't do this. Yeah. I can't violate international law. You guys sure can. So why the hell can't I? And that doesn't mean he's justified in doing it. It means really none of them are justified. But the level of hypocrisy that America thinks we're in any position to lecture anyone about war.
But isn't it fascinating that as long as the people are in a place that we don't have a lot of familiarity with, and as long as the people speak a language that we don't understand and we can't read, it seems like less is going on in some strange way. If the United States did what it did to any of these other countries, it did to England.
Yeah.
Imagine that. Imagine if there was some propped up bullshit reason why they needed to invade England. Holy fucking shit, would that be wild?
Yeah.
Because then you would have people that speak the same language talking about this, going, what the fuck is going on?
Yeah, look the same skin color, same religion, more or less. You know what I mean? It's
especially England, because England is similarly diverse.
Right.
it would be everybody. You'd see everybody. You'd be like, what is going on? Like, and you would hear from them. They would be able to talk in a language you clearly understand. All the newspapers would reflect their positions.
And the craziest
Whereas
thing,
that, like in Sudan or in any other place, any place, we need someone needs to interpret it for us.
right. And just like imagine if like we fought crime here with drone bombs or something like that.
Well, you know
like they
that-
were like, oh, there's a drug dealer in this building. He's a suspected killer, and so we're just going to bomb the building.
You know, they're
And, like,
starting to use robots.
Yeah. I mean, not the
starting-
bombs yet, but
no,
the
but they're
robots.
starting
Yeah.
to deploy robots to fight crime in America. This is literally a fucking Terminator movie.
Yeah, it's
This
some
is
pretty
so
creepy shit.
crazy that we're ever going to allow them to use robots to fight crime. Like, what are you fucking talking about? Like, what are you talking about? Like, first of all, you don't know jack shit about whether or not those things can be hacked, whether someone can take control of it. If it's a computer, there's someone out there smarter than you. They could probably figure out a way to take over that thing.
Well, and the crazy thing is that, you know, there's which is a major push from the Biden administration. Glenn Greenwald just did a video on this the other day. It's really fantastic. But this has been a major push from the Biden administration since but even before he took office, just after the election in 2020, that this is their new thing is like a domestic war on terrorism. That the big threat that they're worried about is domestic terrorism, which is a very loose
What
definition.
they're worried about is someone trying to oppose them.
Yes, there's kind of this war on dissidents.
Yes.
And it's very creepy that the same people who pushed for these wars in the Middle East are now the ones saying, oh yeah, and we need to, and they're calling it the same thing. They're saying, we need to bring what we had over there right here. They're calling you domestic terrorists. It's the Department of Homeland Security that was created in the name of the war on terrorism.
Yeah.
This is now going to focus on, you know, this problem we have here at home, which is like, again, it's just like the fact, like what you were saying, like, okay, if they did this to England or if they did this to Chicago or whatever, it would be so much more blatant to us, you know, but it's like, oh, they do it to Iraq or they do it to Somalia. That just doesn't seem quite as real. But you're like, but those people who were okay doing that there, don't be so comfortable that they won't do that to you too. It's like if somebody, you know, if there was like someone who had like, you know, like attacked kids, and then you were like, yeah, but they did that over in a different neighborhood. I'm letting them babysit my kids today. You're like, I mean, you know,
Right.
I know it was a different neighborhood where they spoke a different language, but like that person's comfortable killing kids. Like, I don't think you want them anywhere around your kids. And like, that's kind of what we've got with these people in our government. Like, they're comfortable making decisions where innocent people die and die by the millions. Like, if you add up the death toll of all the wars, it's in the millions. Somewhere in the range of 2 to 4 million.
Let's just go with Vietnam. Go with Vietnam because that's one that's provable that we got in under false pretenses.
Yep.
That's a
And what is
legitimate
I think
false flag.
I think 2 million Vietnamese and something like that died. I don't. You
That's-
double check me on that, but it's a lot.
and that's a war that everybody opposed.
Yep. Or so. Well, a lot of people.
A lot of people
yeah.
opposed. And now everybody opposes.
And
Nobody
it's
thinks it was a good
yes,
idea
yes.
now.
Well, it's kind of like the war in Iraq now.
Yeah.
You know, like everybody kind of even John McCain wrote in his memoir, like whoopsie.
Yeah.
You know, he was good, but that's kind of what it is.
Did you see the Tucker Carlson interview on Full Send?
Yes, I saw. I didn't watch the entire thing, but I saw a few clips of it when he's talked about how much he regrets supporting the war in Iraq.
Yeah.
That's what you're referring to. Yeah.
Yeah.
And I believe him. I think he really means it.
I believe him too.
Sometimes there's people like John McCain types who go like, you know, or Hillary Clinton, they'll admit, okay, it was a mistake, but then they still support every subsequent war after that, and they
Yeah.
don't. It doesn't see. Whereas Tucker is like, I'm so ashamed that I supported this. I'll never forgive myself for it, and has opposed every subsequent war after that.
Yeah.
And I'm like, okay, I think this guy really believes it.
He's different than people want to pretend he is. First of all, the guy was a deadhead.
Yeah.
You know that? He used to
Yeah.
follow the dead around.
Yeah.
So for sure dropped acid.
That'd be my guess.
I would how else can you enjoy the music?
I think it's legally required that you've taken acid at least once if you're going to enjoy the Grateful Dead. I'm not sure. I don't know. I haven't brushed up on the statutes.
Comes alive to LSD, according to my friends who've been there and done that.
It's really interesting what the public perception of Tucker Carlson is, or particularly how polarizing he is to people that it's almost like they're describing a different person than he actually is.
Right.
I think he was the most interesting person in cable news, the most thoughtful, most intelligent. Like he was really I don't agree with him on anything. You know, on my podcast, we used to do a segment, or I had just done it so many times that we started joking about it being a segment that we called Contra Carlson, because I was just disagreeing with him. Like he had all these economic ideas that I completely disagree with. And I disagree with a lot of stuff he said, but he was like such like the lone voice in like really the corporate press who was completely opposed to the military industrial complex, completely opposed to big pharma and all of the COVID insanity. It was really good on like speaking up about a lot of really important issues that you would think like a good leftist would at least appreciate that he's good on that issue, you know? And some of them did. This is what he's the guy who's having Glenn Greenwald on his show. You know what I mean? He's the guy who's having Aaron Matei and Jimmy Dore.
Yes.
These aren't right wingers.
Yes.
He's having like he's having them.
A lot of left wingers.
And it was very interesting. He wasn't a partisan. He would be completely against the Republican Party, was viciously critical of the Republican Party, hates the Republican establishment. And even the stuff I've seen so many people be like, you know, he bought into Trump's claims that the election was stolen. And I'm like, I don't know, dude, do you watch him? Because I watched his show, and that's actually not true. He was the guy, he took a lot of heat from right-wingers, that immediately following the election of 2020, he really aggressively called out Trump's lawyers, Rudy Giuliani and Sidney Powell, I think was the other one, because they were making claims about the Dominion voting machines, that they flipped millions of votes. And Tucker Carlson went on his show and he goes, okay, if this is true, it's the biggest story in the history of the United States of America. So what evidence do you have? And he's like, we have reached out privately to Trump's lawyers. We've gotten nothing in return. So to be clear, they're making this claim and providing nothing to back it up. He really was like, no. Now, what he has said later is they'll pull quotes and be like, yeah, but he referred to 2020 as a scam or something like that. And it's like, yeah, but you don't watch his show. So you don't get that, like, what he was saying was, yeah, the Dominion vote flipping thing is bullshit. No one's ever provided any evidence of that. But the fact that big tech and the intelligence agencies work together to undermine the Hunter Biden story to get Joe Biden across the finish line is bullshit. Like that's, you know what I mean? And that's a scam. And that's a completely reasonable position to take. Again, it's just, you know, like, look at this, dude. Don Lemon is out at CNN, right? I promise you, whoever replaces Don Lemon has the same exact views as Don Lemon and the same exact views of everybody else at CNN. And that's not true for Tucker Carlson. Right. Like, there was a guy out there who like would disagree with the rest of the people at his network.
Yeah,
disagree with both political parties.
He's really designed for the internet.
I hope he goes there.
He's going to, unless they've paid him off to like I mean, if I was a person in a position of power and a wild card like Tucker Carlson got released from Fox News and maybe Rumble makes a deal with him or something like that. Do you have any fucking idea how big that would be? How big his show, it could make that app, it could make that platform. I mean, if Tucker Carlson goes over there, it would be worth it for them to invest a considerable amount of money. But if I was Fox News, that's the last thing I would want. So I would make sure that we have him locked up for the entire term of some contract, some no compete, and pay him off. You'd be better off just giving him the same amount of money he made when he was on the air.
Well, and I wonder
him opposing you.
I wonder what he's already under contract for. You know what I mean? Like there may already be some clause in his contract that says, you know, if we leave, there's X amount of time.
Sure.
I don't know.
They're fucking Fox News, man. They're smart.
Yeah.
They're not stupid. But it was very shocking seeing him leave.
Yes, I was surprised. Although in hindsight, one of those things where like I was surprised right away, and then like 2 days later, I'm like, how was he ever even there? Like, how would this guy was on the 8 p.m. hour at Fox News saying the CIA killed Kennedy? Like, how was that ever a real thing? You know,
Right.
like
He
it's
did
like
say that.
it's insane. He was like it. But what's crazy to me is that like so many progressives have like. It's like Invasion of the Body Snatchers or something. It's like, is this the real you, man? Have you just been replaced with an NPC? The 8 p.m. hour at Fox News is saying the CIA killed Kennedy. That's not interesting to you?
Right.
That's not like I'm not saying you have to agree with him on everything, but like that's not that's different than Bill O'Reilly.
Yeah.
This is a different world we're living in now.
Yes.
Like this is something that, yeah, it just seems like kind of surreal now looking back at it almost. But Bill O'Reilly did leave and he went and started a podcast or something, I think. I don't know.
Yeah, he's got something, I think.
The problem is his average viewer was like 86 years
Yeah,
old. And
they're on
like,
the border.
A podcast now?
Yeah.
What's that?
Yeah. Getting them to download an app. Good luck.
Like, you're like, I'm going to have to call my grandson.
Where is it? And how does it work? I need to be angry.
This is just talking to like my like in-laws about like scanning a document or something like that.
Yeah,
I know, let
good
alone
luck.
telling them how to download an app and listen to a podcast. I don't know. That
Try
might
to
be
talk your
trouble.
mom through one of those things. Yeah.
But but it is. I do think it's very interesting. I'm very interested to see what his next move is.
It's got to be the internet. You'd be crazy to do anything other.
Well, there's nothing else. I mean, he's not going to CNN. He's not going back to CNN or back to MSNBC. By the way, he used to be on both of those networks.
I know.
But he
Isn't that
got a lot
wild?
better since he was on those networks, and they got a lot worse.
Yeah, it was a different time when he was on those networks. I mean, there was a video that was just released. Who is he interviewing? Is he interviewing Britney Spears, I think? Like from 20 years ago. It's like you're watching this young Tucker Carlson with a bow tie on CNN. You're like, wow. This is kind of crazy. I think
Him and Rachel
podcasts-
Maddow used to like have like a friendly back and forth. Like they'd disagree, but it was like totally friendly when they were both on MSNBC together. And it was like what it was. You look at it now, you're like, wow, what a different world that those two could even be in the same room together.
But I think that what happened? Is it just the internet? Is it when people get together in these echo chambers and they reinforce each other's ideas to the point where anybody that opposes that is just the enemy? Is it just some tribal thing that just automatically happens when people are allowed to gather in large groups like they do on social media?
I think that certainly plays a role, a major role. I think that there's also like, I think the thing kind of came unglued, like the establishment kind of came unglued. I think the George W. Bush administration, the wars and the financial crisis really set into motion like a bad, dangerous thing where it almost like I think there was like an effort to distract away from I think there were powerful people who wanted to distract away from how much the powerful people had fucked over the country. And then there was kind of like this effort to pit people against each other. And then I think it was very easy for people to fall into that and just get very, very tribal and very, very isolated. I also think there was like this knee-jerk reaction from journalists to not confront their own obvious failure. Like in that they hadn't really been reporting on the things that actually, you know what I mean? Like imagine there was this like ticking time bomb, like the subprime mortgage, crisis, and you were just oblivious to it.
Right.
And you've been reporting on all these stories and you weren't reporting on the time bomb that was about to blow up on the working class in America. So now what do you report on? Racism, it's the problem is that this other guy is lying to you. And when Trump got elected, which I think very much was a reaction to a lot of that stuff, I think that then it was like, that's when it really all fell apart because the media, it was so obvious that this guy who you were telling everyone, well, this guy can't possibly win and no one cares about what he has to say. And then tens of millions of people did care about what he had to say and voted for him. It was like their failure was that much more exposed. And so they just had to snap into like other explanations for what happened here. No, it's not that we failed on the job for 30 years. It's that Russia and racism and misinformation and like all of this stuff. But I do think in a lot of ways it was a concerted effort. You ever see that that cartoon, which it's like a banker in like his corner office, and outside his window is all the Occupy Wall Street people protesting, and he's on the phone and he says, "Introduce them to identity politics." You know, like I'm not saying, I don't know if it went down exactly that way, but I think that cartoon's getting at something. Like I think there's a reason. I just don't.
Do you think the government
believe.
is that competent that they could brilliantly socially engineer civilization that way?
I think a lot of the private interests that own our government are pretty competent, actually. You know, I think the government works in very sloppy ways, but if you look at it from the perspective of, say, like, you know, Lockheed Martin and Pfizer and companies making, you know, hundreds of billions of dollars in profits, they're actually working very well. You know, like the system's working very well toward that end. And I just don't think it was completely organic that after we had these disastrous wars and a financial crisis, and after you had the Tea Party and the Occupy Wall Street movement, that all of a sudden on some grassroots level, we were like, we need to have a national conversation about chicks with dicks.
Yeah.
Like, I don't think that just happened. You know what I mean? Like, I don't think that's like every day that's what we got to talk about now. That's the new thing.
What is the gentleman's
beautiful
name from
trans
Russia?
women. I'm sorry.
The trans, excuse me, the Russian guy who used to work for the KGB, Yuri.
Yes, I know you're talking about.
What is his last name? Jamie Bentonov.
I know exactly what you're talking about. Who gave the like lectures on how the Soviet Union was destroying America in the next generation?
And he talked about this in 1984. Mm-hmm. This was during the Soviet Union time. Yuri Bezmenov.
Yep, that's him.
Yuri Bezmenov gave a speech describing exactly America in 2023, describing how Russia had eroded, the Soviet Union had eroded all of our institutions and gotten in there and implanted ideas of Marxism and reinforced these ideas, and that this was undoubtedly going to lead to the demise of America.
There's
but the way he lays it out,
it's compelling, and there's definitely a lot of things that kind of happened exactly like he said they would happen.
Yeah.
And it's not, you know, it's kind of evolved. It's not really like traditional Marxism is kind of dead. No one's really advocating for like government ownership of the means of production. It's more now, it's just kind of like, it's really like corporate control of government with this weird, like what they call cultural Marxism, which I don't like the term because it means different things to so many different people. But the idea that like Marx had this economic view that everything, all of human history was a class struggle between like the oppressor class and the oppressed class. And if you like applied that to cultural issues, it's like describes wokeism to a T.
Yeah.
That everything can be reduced to like white, black, straight, gay, cis, trans, men, women. Like it's like everything is like the oppressor class versus the oppressed.
Yes.
Which is such a shallow, stupid way of analyzing anything. It's just there's so much more to reality than that simplistic way of looking at things.
But it's so attractive to people, which is really fascinating. And that was what Yuri had described in this speech, and how it would captivate people. It's just, I don't want to believe, you know, here's an interesting thing about something like that. Like, even though we're saying everything he described seems to be happening right now, he describes wokeism to a T, he described what's happening in this country to a T, I still have an impulse, an undeniable impulse to reject it. Like, no, they didn't do that. No, they're not that smart. No, that's not what happened. There's a part of me, for whatever weird reason, and I think everybody has this part of them, that doesn't want to believe that something's happening while it's happening. There's a thing that's going on right now because we're so accustomed to being able to do what we do. We're so accustomed to be able to drive to work and do this and hang out with your family and go out with your friends. We're so accustomed to this. We don't imagine a world, despite all of the evidence of history. You could go see the Colosseum in Rome. You could go see the Acropolis and the Parthenon. You can go see all of these great empires that no longer exist. There's just stone structures where these people used to rule the fucking world. But in our mind, that was then. And right now, everything's amazing, and we're perfect. And if we could just get a trans president, we could fucking solve this. Like we believe in the moment.
Yeah.
We can't look at the vast amount of data that shows us the same patterns of behavior that humans are exhibiting right now have led to disastrous consequences in the collapse of civilizations.
And it's so easy when you look at those past civilizations to be like, how did you guys not see it coming? I mean, it's all around you.
Right.
Like, how are you not completely against? You know, there's so many examples like this, right? It's very easy to, and I have the same impulse. It's very easy to look in the past and be like, sweet, there was slavery and you were just like okay with it. Like you weren't against that every single day. And then you're just like, now we, of course, down the road is a state prison. There's a bunch of people there for weed, but that's totally different. You know what I mean? Like,
Yeah.
but it's like, I don't know. In 100 years, if that all got cleaned up, you'd look back at that with the exact same view. You'd be like, you enslaved people for
Not
like
that.
bullshit.
People are writing about it on their phones, which are literally made by
Yes.
slaves.
It's like there's like all of this stuff right around you. But if you try to zoom out and you try your best to be disinterested and just analyze, and you go, okay, so where are we right now at the United States of America? So we are a republic that turned into an empire, got expanded all over the world, something I think 700 something bases in 135 different countries, trying to rule the entire world. Through the process of doing that, we've spent ourselves $30 trillion into debt, and now we see massive cultural decay into just like decadence.
yeah.
What's that story? If that's not a crumbling empire, I don't know what a crumbling empire is.
I hear the America Fuck Yeah song in the background. That's what I hear. America, fuck yeah. Come and save
Oh, those
the
guys are so
motherfucking
great.
day, yeah. That's
Dude,
what
is
I
there
hear.
anything better? That movie was so great, dude.
It's amazing.
Where they go over and just like destroy the whole place, and they'd be like, "You're welcome." Team America.
It's one of the greatest movies of all time.
So great, so great.
It's fun. That and the South Park movie. The South Park movie when
so
Saddam
funny.
Hussein has a sexual affair with Hitler. Oh, no, it was the devil. Excuse me.
Yes. Yeah.
Was Hitler in that too?
No, it was Satan.
no,
It was
Sa-
Satan and Saddam
right.
Hussein, and Satan's like the
That's
sub.
right. Oh my
like
God.
Satan's the
That's right. And then there was real dicks. They could show a photo of a real dick somehow or another.
Yeah, they always figured out a
like-
way to do it. They're so on point, dude. Throughout the years, they've always just been so on point.
The best show of all time.
Yeah.
It's the best comedy show of all time by far. I just introduced my 12-year-old to it the other day, and she's
yeah?
blown away.
12 is a good age.
Yeah, I'm like, it's a perfect age. I'm like, she hears me talk. Like, I'm
Yeah.
not very filtered. You know, I always tell them, don't say bad words around adults and other people. Be respectful, but they're just words.
Yeah, that's a good.
What I'm worried about is your feelings. I'm worried about what is your intent. It's not what I'm not worried about is words.
I'm just at the age. My daughter is 4, and my son is 1, and I'm just at the age now where I'm starting to hear some of the words that I say coming back out, and you're like, so that's going to be the next chapter.
When my daughter
He's dealing
was
with
3,
this.
my youngest daughter was 3. We were skiing, and we were leaving the hotel. We had packed all our stuff up, and my wife realized, she goes, I forgot to pack the helmet in like this one bag. And my 3-year-old goes, shit. And me and my wife look at each other and go, oh no. Oh no.
You're like, all right. It's so funny too, because
And
like
she was a sigh too. It was a sigh shit like, shit.
it's just so real. Like she wasn't like trying to say a bad word. It's just
she
a,
knew
a
that's the word you
completely-
say.
Just a-
somebody fucked up and forgot to put the helmet in the bag. It's everything's packed and stuffed in.
It's
shit.
Dude, it's so funny because you have like this life, right, where you're like, so you're like with your wife when you're just a couple before you have kids, and you're just a couple, you know, you say whatever you want. And then even when you have little babies, it's like, it's just not even a thing. And then right around that age where you go,
Yeah,
so we
you're
have
listening.
something to
Yeah.
confront here. There's 2 paths. Number 1, I can try to watch my mouth. And I'm like, babe, I'm going to be honest with you. Very low percentage chance that
Yeah.
works out well. And the other one is what you said, where you're just like, okay, let them understand it's just a word, but also let them know, okay, look, there's time and places where you can't use these words.
My parents were hippies. You know, my mother and my stepfather were hippies. So from the time I was like 7 years old, they told me you could say whatever you want. They were like, just don't say it at school. Don't.
They had no idea the monster they were creating.
My mom actually talked about it the other night. We were having dinner. She's like, maybe I should have set some boundaries.
So you can say whatever you want to as big an audience as you want to, little Joe Rogan.
Yeah, it was interesting. It was interesting growing up that way because like their perspective was like everything that the establishment has created is wrong. Like this is not the way to live. You know, and
Right.
that was the whole hippie movement. You know, my stepfather had like really long hair. So the whole thing was very interesting to grow up that way because, you know, from the time I was 7, I felt like an outsider because I had moved a lot. But then also I had these parents that were really open-minded and very liberal. And they were like, this is all bullshit. Like when I remember like being a child when the war in Vietnam ended, I think I was like 10 years old or something like that, thinking, this is great. Now we're not going to have wars anymore. I really thought that, man. I've remembered that. And I remember being blown away. Me and my friend Jimmy were watching the Iraq War. It was like whatever year that was. What
The
year?
first one,
The first one.
HW,
What
which
year was that?
is 1991.
91. That makes sense because I was living with my friend Jimmy. And we had just come home from work, and we were watching it on TV. And he looks at me and goes, what do you know? We're at fucking war. And I was like, what do you know? We're at fucking war. Like, this is real. Like, this is crazy. Like, I thought we figured this out. I thought we weren't doing this anymore.
And you know what's so crazy about that first war in Iraq is that, because I remember I was a little kid, a very little kid. I was born in 83, so I was, 8 when we first fought that war. But I remember being aware of it. I remember seeing the speech when George H.W. Bush announced we were going. And all those same neocons who later went to Project for a New American Century, they were all in the George H.W. Bush administration, and then they went into his son's administration. And they all said that they had conquered Vietnam syndrome, as they called it. You see, from their perspective, the country had this terrible Vietnam syndrome after Vietnam, meaning that people didn't really want to fight wars. They had this attitude that, like, we shouldn't fight wars because they can be really bad. But see, now George H.W. Bush, this hero, he conquered that because they showed how easy the war was. Look, we fought a war now. It's so easy because America's so powerful. We just stormed right in there. Minimal loss of life on our side. Very few casualties on the American side. Toppled it right in there. Let Saddam Hussein stay in power, but easy peasy, that war's over. And Joe, 30 years later, we still have a military presence in Iraq. That's how easy that war was. Is that all of these years later, the war continued through Clinton, not technically a war, but a full blockade of the country, bombing campaigns, massive sanctions, tons of people dying. I don't know exactly how much. The UN had a study, which I think is bullshit, but they said 500,000 children had died from starvation and malnutrition during the sanction campaign in
Why
the
do you
90s.
think it's bullshit?
I saw someone, I don't exactly remember, but I saw someone make an argument for why their estimations were wrong and the study wasn't right. So anyway, he was arguing, and it seemed pretty compelling. It seemed like, oh, that actually sounds right, that they were like counting the wrong way, kind of. So it probably wasn't 500,000, but maybe it was 100,000, whatever. It was like children just starving due to this blockade. And it was also one of the main things that really pissed off Osama bin Laden, radicalized him against America. It was one of his stated grievances in his declaration of war on America, because we kept the bases in Saudi Arabia to enforce the blockade around Iraq. And he was like, okay, so you have your bases in our holy land to starve other Muslims to death. And that pissed off a lot of people over there. But yeah, that war, man, which they sold it as like, look, what an easy victory it was, in many ways really locked us into a war for decades.
I remember
Iraq.
the first casualties when a Scud missile hit those soldiers. I remember that was like shocking.
Yeah.
That a certain number of people had died. Like that we were so we had given into this idea that it would be just they would storm it and that's it. And once that narrative got set, like, oh, the United States is just wiping out the army. Like there is no army. It's a joke. The whole thing's a joke. They're like, whew, no one's gonna die. And then when people did die, you're like, whoa. But then it becomes normal. It becomes normal. It becomes the idea of losing soldiers becomes normal. And then all these other military actions start happening.
Yeah.
And then 9/11 happens. And then the big ones happen. And then it becomes normal for us. And then you're not allowed to take photographs of coffins anymore. Remember those?
Yeah. Oh,
you
yeah.
couldn't, they didn't allow journalists to take photographs of flag-draped coffins, which is, what is that? What is that? I mean, until this Ukraine war, like the Ukraine war, you're seeing cell phone footage
Right.
of war atrocities. You're seeing cell phone footage of people. I saw a guy get killed with a hammer. They killed a guy with a sledgehammer. You're seeing people get shot in foxholes at close range. You're seeing like HD footage of this stuff. The war becomes very abstract to people who haven't experienced it, I think.
It's hard to even believe or wrap your head around. Like it's so hard. It's hard to even think that like in a society where we have the technology that me and you are sitting in this room and we're also speaking to like millions of people, and we'll go to a shop and buy something and get lunch, and then we'll go do comedy tonight, and someone will be like, "Oh, great show, thank you very much." It's just like a civilized society that we still just have mass murder sprees where we just agree like we're gonna go, like we haven't figured out a different way to settle these disputes. It's like it's hard to actually believe. It's hard. Certainly for me, I don't think anyone's completely capable who hasn't seen it, and certainly that applies to me, of like really understanding what that is. But it's bad, and it's just like I don't know. It just I can't believe more people aren't just. Fiona Hill had, I think I talked about this last time I was on, but Fiona Hill, who she again, this is in Foreign Affairs magazine, not like Ron Paul Weekly. You know what I mean? Like, I think Ron Paul's the greatest hero ever, but I'm saying this isn't like what the kooky libertarians say, like me. This is like Fiona Hill in Foreign Affairs magazine. She was the one who reported that they had a peace deal worked out. Basically, in pencil, not in pen, but like in principle, they had a peace deal worked out, and that Boris Johnson, as a representative of the West, went over there and convinced Zelensky not to negotiate. Not to negotiate. Don't you give them 1 inch. It's like they want, and this is what it seems like for real. It seems like they want this war. They want to prolong it to bleed the Russians dry. Like, that's their plan.
Damn.
And you're like, Jesus, man. But why wouldn't they be that evil? I mean, why wouldn't they be that evil when they're that evil everywhere else?
That's what's fucked up. It's hard for us to think that's a fact.
Yeah.
It's hard for us to, when you're going about your day, just hanging out in New York and fucking visiting your favorite coffee shop, it's hard to believe that you're a part of that.
Yeah. Well, one of the things that's like, I guess it's like after a while, like one of the things that helps me understand this is like you look at people and their track record is that we have a very short attention span, as a country. But it's like when you look at, so one of the absolute best people on the war in Russia and Ukraine, people really want to learn about this stuff, is John Mearsheimer, who is the dean of the Realist School of Foreign Policy. He's like a world-renowned scholar. This guy is not a non-interventionist libertarian like me, just like a scholar who's like talks about foreign policy and stuff. And he's written and spoken extensively about Ukraine, Russia, and he was one of the big opponents of this whole policy. And meanwhile, so after the government was overthrown, the one that Gideon Rose was so happy about when we stole Ukraine away, we stole Robin from Batman, Victoria Nuland and Gideon Rose and all of those people who were pushing for this policy, they all said, this is wonderful. Ukraine is choosing to join the liberal world order, and they're choosing democracy and hope, and everything's going to be wonderful for them. Their country's going to flourish. And John Mearsheimer said, and his quote was, it was in a lecture he gave in 2015, he said, "America is leading Ukraine down the primrose path." And which I didn't understand what that means exactly, but it sounds real good. But what it means basically is like, we're leading you down this beautiful path that ends in your demise. And that basically we were encouraging them to play tough with the Russians. And it's like, don't worry, America's got your back. Oh. It's like you convincing some dude who doesn't know how to fight, like, go fight this guy, because like I got your back. And they're like, oh, okay, well, Joe Rogan's a black belt. He's got my back. I'll go fucking fight this guy. And then when you fight the guy, you're like, well, I'm not going to like jump in the fight with you, but like I'll yell instructions to you while you're in the fight. You're like, throw him in an arm bar. And they're like, what's an arm bar? And like, just get it. So we like led them down this path. And so like, okay, maybe you don't agree, but like whose prediction was better? John Mearsheimer's or, Gideon Rose? Who predicted what was happening here better? The guy who said this was going to be disaster for Ukraine, or the guy who said, "Yay,
Batman, Robin.
we're stealing Robin away. Ha, we distracted you, Putin, with the Olympics." It's like, oh, that distraction didn't work very well. And so it's just like it's horrible. Like, but that's one of the things that one of the things that's so interesting about this war too is like when people will defend it. I almost want to ask people, so why, if this war is so necessary, or it's so necessary for us to arm them, why shouldn't we intervene militarily? Why isn't America's military going into Ukraine? Why aren't we invading Russia? Why aren't we at least occupying Ukraine and forcing? We certainly have the conventional forces to force Russia's army out of there, no problem. So why aren't we doing that? And the reason we're not doing that is because everyone knows, we can't do that because that's nuclear war. That's nuclear war in a certainty. So you're like, okay, so that's nuclear war. So that's off the table. Biden's not even suggesting that. But so then what does it go from like a certainty of nuclear war to what's the risk of nuclear war if we're just fighting a proxy war and giving them hundreds of billions of dollars and pledging till the end that will drive Russia out? Well, the risk doesn't go to zero. You know what I mean? It goes to something maybe less, but it's still something. But so
it's still terrifying.
Still way more than we should be willing to take.
Yeah, if Vancouver got armed by the Russians and Vancouver was attacking Seattle.
Yeah.
Like, what do you think would happen?
So everyone knows. I mean, everyone knows what would happen.
Yeah.
America would start blowing shit up like crazy.
Yeah.
We would go to war with the world if anyone ever. And look, Jack Kennedy fucking said it. Right? He literally said, but he basically said, you put these missiles in Cuba, I will blow up the world. I'm treating this as a preemptive nuclear strike on America if you do that. Get those missiles the hell off of Cuba. And I think most people go, yeah, that's reasonable. It's kind of reasonable to say we cannot tolerate Soviet nuclear warheads pointed at us from a little island a few miles off our coast. That's just can't be. And look, we have a Monroe Doctrine. Monroe Doctrine says that America does not tolerate any faraway power coming in and interfering in our realm of influence. Okay? And essentially what Vladimir Putin has been saying for years was I want a Monroe Doctrine for Ukraine. I want a Monroe Doctrine for this part of the world. And that doesn't mean he's a good guy, and that doesn't mean that that's a perfect system. But at least prior to invading Ukraine, he had a point. He had a reasonable point to say, I don't want you interfering in my biggest neighbor right here. And a very strategically important area to him.
Dude, hold that thought. I got to pee.
Yeah.
All right, we're back. So the leaked document, what was your thoughts on that? Because the whole thing was crazy that this guy had access to it. And I guess he was showing it to his friends or something. Is that what it was?
Well, it seems that way. A lot of people kind of were criticizing the guy, and they were kind of saying well, look, this guy's no Ed Snowden. I mean, he didn't take this to Glenn Greenwald at The Guardian to have him vet through it and properly disclose it. He's bragging to friends on a Discord server or whatever. And essentially that seems right to me. That does kind of seem like what happened. But again, that's not the interesting story here. The interesting story isn't what this guy's deal was or what his motives were. The story is oh, the government's lying to you again. And also that they have this information that they claim is so vital that it's so horrible he leaked it. And yet you're so reckless with it that, it's it's funny. I remember Glenn Greenwald making this point when people would talk about people were at the national security apparatus or whatever would be talking about how reckless it is that Snowden just gave all of this information out. And you're like, well, then weren't you pretty reckless too? Because if this information's so vital, you didn't even know it was gone.
Right.
They didn't even know it was gone until The Guardian published it. And then they were like, oh, I guess this guy took all of our documents. What did the document say? Well, just right before that, one of the other real interesting thing is that they came out a couple days after the leak first was getting reported. The Reuters had a piece, an article where they had 3 high-level U.S. officials under anonymity, said that, you'll never believe this, Joe, it had all the hallmarks of Russian disinformation. And so isn't it just amazing that they'll go, and then like 2 days later, they completely gave up on that and went, let's just smear the kid who did it. Forget all that stuff. There were some interesting revelations from the documents. Things like there are NATO and U.S. military embedded in Ukraine, assisting them basically, which is pretty dangerous.
Western Special Forces operating inside Ukraine. One document dated 23 March refers to the presence of a small number of Western Special Forces operating inside Ukraine without specifying their activities or location. The UK has the largest contingent, 50, followed by Latvia, 17, France, 15, and the US, 14, the Netherlands, 1. Western governments typically refrain from commenting on such sensitive matters, but this detail is likely to be seized upon by Moscow, which has in recent months argued that it is not just confronting Ukraine, but NATO as well.
And essentially, look, this was the I think when Putin ultimately decided to invade Ukraine last year, I think basically what he concluded was that they did it. They brought Ukraine into NATO. Even though Ukraine is not an official NATO country, at this point, they backed the coup that overthrew the democratically elected government under Yanukovych. They poured weapons into the country, and they were doing joint training exercises with NATO and the Ukrainian military. And I think Vladimir Putin was basically like, we told them this was our brightest of red lines, and they crossed it. And I got to do something. Now, I'm not saying he should have done this. There's other things he could have done. There's lots of things. I don't know exactly. You get creative, but he could have cut off all natural gas to Europe. He could have dropped a nuke in the ocean. He could have done something before he did this, But he basically concluded that Ukraine is de facto a member of NATO. And if you look at the way we're responding to this whole thing, he's kind of right. We're backing them all the way because they were invaded. That's what we're supposed to do to a NATO country, And so this is bad that this comes out. Although I got to say, I'm surprised to some degree how much, if the Nord Stream bombing didn't, do it, I don't know if just some special forces being embedded there is going to create some big escalation. But yeah, this is something.
Nord Stream bombing is wild.
Well, look, dude, there's been in the last year.
Trump predicted that Germany, if they don't take steps to stop this, they're going to be completely dependent upon Russian oil. And it was one of those things where people were making fun of him at the time. What are you talking about?
I don't know if I completely agree with Trump on that. But there's no question that...
But they are dependent upon it now, right? Because of the Nord Stream pipeline blowing up?
Well, not anymore. It doesn't exist anymore. But I think that there's a lot of people a lot of very powerful people were very against the Nord Stream pipeline.
Right.
I have a different view of it. I think it was great. But there's.
You think it was great?
Yes.
Why?
Because the worst thing that's ever happened in the history of the world was Germany and Russia going to war. In World War II, something like 30 million people died just in that conflict. It's the worst thing that's ever happened in the history of the world. And so for them to be interconnected and interdependent, which is how I would see it, trading, where goods cross borders, armies don't have to, that old saying, I think it would have been a good thing for them to be together. Oh, look, now you're directly incentivized to not be enemies because you want the cheap natural gas and they want your money for their cheap natural gas. And so, however, there's a big view from the neoconservatives and the neoliberals, the kind of establishment, that this is the scariest thing. The scariest thing is that Germany and Russia align. And I don't know exactly if this is true, but some people, blanking on the guy's name, but the guy who founded Stratford, Friedman, I believe is his name, he basically said that this is the centerpiece of American foreign policy since World War II. That the whole idea of NATO is to keep Germany in and Russia out. and that their biggest fear is that Germany and Russia would unite against us, and that could be the only thing that could really challenge American power, is like the ingenuity of Germany with the manpower and natural resources of Russia. So there's a lot of people who have been against this from the very beginning.
No one would ever think of that today. Like your average person today would think maybe Germany and Russia could unite again.
Well, it's the
you know what I mean? Like that's not.
But to those, to some people, look, the neoconservatives who are, and let me say this delicately, or let me preface this: I'm Jewish. Okay, so let me just say that there are a lot of Jewish people in the neoconservative movement. And this is part of the reason why they're very, very pro-Israel. It's also part of the reason, and I'll say somewhat understandably, while it's a big German independence is a big concern to them. They still live with that kind of this is the great fear that Germany will rise again one day. And if they're connected with Russia like this, they're not under the EU's thumb and NATO's thumb anymore. Now they could possibly go in a different direction. So for years, there were a lot of people who were against this. Now, when Ukraine when Russia invaded Ukraine, they did turn off the pipe, Germany was boycotting. So they weren't using any of the gas from the pipe. However, they've also adopted all of these crazy climate policies and completely destroyed a lot of their own internal energy sources. They've denuclearized and all that stuff. And so I think the concern was that going into winter, what if there's pressure on them to decide to turn these pipes on? And that this might be, then Germany might start, siding with Russia, or at least if they're getting their natural gas from Russia, they're not going to be so harsh on Russia, and they're not going to be so willing to play ball with the EU. And there's already, a history of this, what I was talking about before at the Bucharest summit in 2008, when they announced Ukraine was going into, would eventually join NATO. It was Merkel was really against it. They got that in over her wishes. So they're already a little concerned that maybe Germany is not quite as anti-Russia as we are. And so going into the winter, I think they were concerned there was going to be a strain on power in Germany, and they might be tempted to turn that pipeline back on. And so they made sure it's, as Victoria Nuland said, a hunk of metal at the bottom of the sea.
Could you fucking imagine if some time in the future we're going to war with Germany and Russia united against America?
Yeah. Well, I think what's much more of a concern than that to me right now, at least, is how crazy is this? That over the last year, while this war has been going on, NATO has been attacked twice. There was missiles in Poland, and there was the Nord Stream bomb. And those are two attacks on NATO. And yet, both of them didn't come from Russia. You know what I mean? Now, if you remember, do you remember the story a few months back? So there was these missiles hit Poland, killed a couple people there. Zelensky immediately said this was Putin and that the West has to respond. And then eventually, a couple days later, it came out it was actually Ukraine. And they were like, oh, it was an accident. That's what they say, it's an accident. I mean, who knows? Maybe it was intentional to try to blame on Russia or something like that. But even saying it was an accident, okay, they accidentally attacked NATO. And then the Nord Stream pipeline, which was clearly not Russia. That was what they said at first. Oh, this is Russia blew up their own pipeline. Why?
You saw the video of Biden saying that they would do something like that?
Yeah, he promised that it would happen.
Yeah.
Which
is just wild. The whole thing is just, it's all in front of our faces.
Well, it's an act of industrial terrorism and environmental terrorism to do this. And, Cy Hirsch reported, and I trust that guy a lot more than I trust most other journalists, and he reported that it was America. Even I think the New York Times now concluded that they said it was some pro-Ukrainian group. And you're like, okay, but that includes all of us.
Well, do you see the article in the New York Times that said maybe we shouldn't know?
Yeah. That's great journalism right there. We don't know who it was. The title was literally something like, we don't know who blew up the Nord Stream pipeline, and that might be for the best or something.
Something along those lines.
It's you can't I don't know, you can't make this shit up.
That
really.
is such a crazy thing for a journalist to write.
Well, I mean, I remember sometimes you can just kind of you can just look at these things logically. I remember in 2017, is when I was still a contributor on Essie Cup show, and she was at CNN, and the big story came out that Assad had gassed his own people, and I remember right away, and this is before any of those like PW whistleblowers came out or anything like that, but just right away, I remember the day after being on TV and just being like, I don't think he did this. And they're like, how can you say that? Everyone's saying he did this. And you're like, well, look at it. It's like 2 weeks ago, Trump announced that we're leaving Syria. Like, we're withdrawing from Syria. He won. After this 5-year bloody civil war where he's been fighting for his life to not be Muammar Gaddafi, he has just announced that he won. And so now you're telling me for no strategic military advantage, he just did the one thing that will keep this war going and can maybe end up like Muammar Gaddafi? Like, that doesn't make any sense. I'm not buying this. And then it did kind of come out as these whistleblowers were like, yeah, it didn't come from the sky, it came from the ground, and it was done in, rebel-controlled territory, and like this does not look like it was Assad. But I remember when they first, it was like the same thing when they first got, we think Russia blew up their own pipeline. Like, but why? Why would they? Like this just, so you're telling me Vladimir Putin just took away the option that Germany might cave this winter and want to buy his natural gas again? Why would he do that? And then, of course, it comes out later like, no, that's not what it was. It was probably British intelligence or some U.S. allied group, if not directly us. And so, yeah, that's pretty crazy. It's pretty hard to like look at that and still feel like we're just the good guys in this war. And again, when I say we, just for everyone, disclaimer for this entire, like those great Eminem lyrics, I'm all for America. Fuck the government. When I say America did this or America's wrong, I'm not talking about you or your daddy or your hometown or anything like that. I'm just talking about like Bill Clinton and George W. Bush and Barack Obama and Dick Cheney and Donald Trump and, all of them. Bill Clinton, Jeffrey Epstein's rapist friend. That's who I'm talking about. Turns out these guys aren't good people.
It's so wild when if you looked at us from outside of us, and you looked at the human race and these patterns that repeat themselves over and over again, you would wonder, like, why aren't they seeing these patterns? Like, why don't they recognize when these things are happening as they've happened to so many civilizations before? Like, what is it about watching everything erode before your eyes that's not shocking enough to wake people up to what's happening?
Well, sometimes I think there's kind of like a pattern and there's big forces at play that are hard for individuals to get a hold of, Like there's kind of this thing where there's like governments are power centers and it's not just like in the same way every business kind of wants to get bigger, wants to have more profit. You want to have more listeners to your podcast. You just kind of want more, but the government isn't in the market. It's not like, oh, I have to provide something of value in order to get more people voluntarily to listen to my show or come to my business or something like that. They're in the game of take things. They're in the game of force. You pay your taxes or you go to jail. Like this, that's the government is a monopoly on legal aggression, like on force. And so governments, it's almost impossible to stop them from just getting bigger and bigger and bigger and bigger. And the bigger they get, the more corrupt things get and the more power they have. And it's almost like this cycle, where like if a government is limited, then the country is prosperous because they have more freedom. And then the more prosperous they are, the more the government has that they can leech off of. And then the government gets bigger and bigger and bigger. And it's almost like I don't know what can happen to stop that cycle. The thing that makes me optimistic is that they really rely on propaganda. Like they really need the propaganda and they know it, They know they can't just like roll out the vaccine mandates without a huge propaganda campaign. They got to convince you and then try to get away with their tyrannical policies. And I do think that the propaganda is being undermined more than ever.
More than ever.
Like, it's really, really hard for them. It'd be really, really hard for them to sell us on some next bullshit policy. Much harder than it used to be. And think about how easy it was after 9/11. George Bush could have done whatever he wanted to.
Yeah. Well, that's how we got into Iraq.
Yeah.
I mean,
he had a blank check.
Yeah. Everybody was like, take care of it.
Yep.
Take care of it.
Yep.
Yeah. I mean, I remember feeling the strangest sense of patriotism driving down the road and seeing everybody with an American flag hanging off their car.
Yeah.
People were all in.
Yeah, dude, I was 18 when 9/11 happened, and I was living in Prospect Heights, which is like if Flatbush Avenue kind of runs down to the Manhattan Bridge, and the Brooklyn Bridge is down there too. It's like a couple miles away from the World Trade Center. And I remember we got out of school. I think I was a senior in high school. And we got out of school, and I remember walking to my house at and looking down Flatbush Avenue. So this has been a couple hours now since the towers came down, and seeing people covered head to toe in soot, like they walked over the Brooklyn Bridge and just came home because there's like no subways running or nothing. So they're just walking, just covered, like, oh, that guy got caught in the middle of it. And it was a crazy feeling in the city. The whole thing was insane. It seemed like it seemed impossible. No one could ever hit us. This is America in the 90s. I mean, it wasn't the 90s, but it was still the 90s until 9/11. You know what I mean?
Right.
And you were like, this is impossible. This couldn't happen. And I remember when George W. Bush came and gave that speech on the megaphone.
Yeah.
And it was like almost perfect in his simplistic, way, where he goes, I want you to know we hear you in Washington, D.C. And pretty soon, the people who knock down these towers, they're going to hear you too. And I remember being like, fuck yeah, you just picked a fight with the baddest motherfuckers, and we're going to fuck your shit up. But I was an idiot fucking, kid. But if I fell for it completely.
Everybody did.
But it was just like, that's kind of how it is. When you're hurt and you feel like you got hit and they killed our people, well, we're going to fucking kill your people, motherfucker. But then you kind of realized, and this is what like Ron Paul taught me, is it's like, yeah, okay, that impulse that you just had? Exactly. That's what they feel. So it's like the same way that you kill us, motherfucker, we're going to kill your fucking people. You go, that's it. That's the same exact thing that the fucking terrorists are feeling. That's the same thing their side's feeling. That they're like, oh yeah, you come here and bomb our fucking village, we're going to kill your fucking people, And it's kind of like, that's the whole fucking cycle. And it's like, I don't know. It's like, I remember literally saying this when I was arguing with S.E. Cupp and them on her show, where there'd be like an attack. Even like the littler ones, I remember there was one where like a New York guy, some Muslim guy in New York, like hit people with his car, and he was like, said he was part of ISIS or something. I don't even know how connected he was. And they're like, they're all like, well, don't we have to do something about this? I mean, don't we have to go bomb, Syria or do something about this? And you're like, right, you just got hit, and now you feel like we have to do something. But what's something? Blow shit up, right?
Yeah.
It's not just like something, like give a speech. You're saying we got to blow shit up over this. It's like, all right. Well, maybe that's their perspective too.
And also, once you blow shit up, people want to blow shit up back.
Yeah, and now you're just continuing this. And so like, oh, we got to fight him over there so we don't fight him over here. But you're like, well, maybe that actually ensures that we have to fight him over here.
And isn't it wild that during this most chaotic of times in our history, if we think about the future of the world, we think about the possibility of war. It's escalated, and we have the craziest situation as a president and a vice president. The thing is wild. Like, the only options we have, or from the right or the left, we're like, what the fuck? This is it? Like, this is all that's left? It's like going to the supermarket during the pandemic and there's nothing on the shelves.
Yeah.
You're like, oh my God.
All that's here is a Trump and a Biden? That's all we
pickles?
have? Like, really? All right.
We're going to eat a jar of mayonnaise and pickles.
Oh my God.
That's all that's here.
And the thing about it that's kind of crazy is that it's like, it is so entertaining, even though you kind of know it's a disaster. Like, I remember when Trump announced he was running again, it was literally like I was like, this is so bad for the country. God damn, this is going to be fun. Like, all in one thought, like, God damn, this is going to be funny as shit. Like,
it definitely was that. It definitely was funny.
But I'm saying 24 is gonna be funny. Like, it's just, but it's bad. Hopefully there's like more. I really hope that that Robert Kennedy Jr.'s campaign like has some impact and like takes off. I hope more good people run.
But how could he possibly win?
Well, he's probably not going to win.
Right. So like, all he's doing is getting the message out. But I think that's valuable. I think that's very valuable.
And I also think things like that can, like, it can, like, check the establishment a little bit. If they're like, whoa, a lot of people like what this guy's saying. Maybe we can't get away with this right now. Maybe we can't get away with that. Like, there have been examples of that before where that happens. They try to do something and they realize this is going to be too many people are going to be upset about this.
Yeah, wasn't there talk during the Obama administration about some sort of regulation of the internet?
Yeah, the SOPA bill, the SOPA and PIPA, there were like these proposals that were like real deal going to regulate the internet. Not like big tech censorship shit, like really the government was going to regulate the internet. I'm telling you, Joe, they'd have shut your show down if that shit had passed.
100%.
If SOPA had passed, there's no way your podcast goes through the pandemic.
No way.
There's no way you're allowed to have dissident doctors and scientists on to give like their point of view on how every policy is wrong. They just wouldn't have allowed it. No. And so that didn't happen. We're still like in the game with a fighting shot because enough people, got furious about that. And look, I should to be fair, there was also corporate help with that. Like back then, a lot of the tech companies were against it because they were still like, they weren't in bed with the government as much back then. And there was like, I believe Google was really against it. And so they helped push kind of that message. So I do think also like, we're going to need a mass awakening in this country, but we're also going to need like powerful people. This is like what you see, what's really encouraging with Elon Musk buying Twitter is you kind of see that like, yeah, that's necessary too. You got to have like a badass billionaire who's like on board with this, who can actually do something about it.
Because he's so valuable.
Yeah. Yeah.
That move, I know that pissed a lot of people off. There's a lot of people that are just missing the fucking point, man. They're mad that questionable people are allowed to be on it. Listen, all sorts of questionable people are already on there.
Yeah.
The Taliban's on Twitter. The CCP's on Twitter.
Joe Biden.
There's
all types of bad people.
There's always been people on Twitter.
Yes. And come on, it's also like you kind of just like miss. Like don't get it twisted. It's like, again, like when it's like what I try to say with the Ukraine thing. It's like, look, if the people who didn't have anything to say over what happened in Yemen over the last like 7 years are really upset about the humanitarian crisis in Ukraine, it's like, just don't be a fucking mark.
Right.
Like, see what's going on here. I'm not saying you can't be upset over the humanitarian crisis in Ukraine, but I'm just saying recognize what they are doing. They don't really care about the humanitarian crisis. They're using this. They're manipulating you. And in the same sense, don't think the people who are like all for big tech, look, you may really hate if there's like a neo-Nazi or something like that, like on Twitter or something, Yeah. Okay, I get it. I get where you hate that. But understand why they hate it.
Yeah.
They don't hate it because of that. Like, they don't care about that. They got no problem sending weapons to the neo-Nazis in Ukraine, which, by the way, we haven't touched on that, but there's some real deal ones in there. But my point is, it's not that they hate neo-Nazis. They hate dissidents, okay? So you might find one example of a dissident who we all agree is a real bad guy or something like that. But they're not shutting down people like just for that. They're shutting down Alex Berenson for making data-driven arguments about why the COVID policies are wrong.
Yeah, a guy used to write for the New York Times.
Yes. Yeah. That's who they're going after. Yeah. You know what I mean? So like
asking him to be removed. What are you doing about it?
And it's always in like coded kind of mafioso, terms.
Talk.
Like, I didn't technically say you should kick Alex Berenson off. I just went, what's up with this Berenson character?
He has a lawsuit now.
Yeah. Well, didn't he win his lawsuit against Twitter originally against the old Twitter regime?
But now he has one against the Biden administration.
That's real interesting.
Yeah,
good for him.
I think he wants to find out what was said. He wants to find out what did you do? Like, what internal discussions were there?
Right.
You guys were trying to remove my First Amendment rights.
Yeah.
And it was data-driven stuff that he was talking about. You're just trying to silence a journalist.
But that's also, you realize that it's kind of like, that's why it just all has to be protected.
You can't silence journalists, man.
But it's also why it's like, even if he wasn't making data-driven arguments, he should have a right to make the arguments. You know what I'm saying? Like, even if it's not, like, you have to protect even the dangerous speech, otherwise you have no leg to stand on. So like anything short of incitement of violence or some type of criminal activity or something like that, but you have to, like, it's like, otherwise you have this slippery slope. And it's amazing how quickly it happened, right? Like, you remember when that happened with Alex Jones. Mm-hmm. So like not that long ago, that it was like, oh, all of the companies colluded together to all kick him off and silence him at once. And then everyone goes like, yeah, but it's just Alex Jones, you know? And then like before you know it, oh, it's not just Alex Jones.
No, it's going to keep going. It's a thing that feeds off of removing people that you disagree with.
And this is why Elon Musk pisses them off so much. It's the same reason why Donald Trump pisses them off so much. It's almost like he interrupted the inevitability of them winning.
Yeah.
You know how like progressives will say, you're going to be on the wrong side of history?
Yes.
Which is like a really presumptuous thing if you think about it. Like you're saying you already know how history is written and that you are the right side of it.
Yeah.
But that kind of is their worldview. That it's like, look, we're going in this direction and that's the correct direction. And what's going to happen next is Hillary Clinton's going to be president. You see, that's the next step. And they're like, well, this wasn't supposed to happen. Trump was not supposed to be here. And then same thing, it was like, we're going in the direction of content moderation. And, you know,
Censorship.
cracking down on misinformation, whatever their euphemisms for it
Removing
are.
people you disagree with.
Yes. And then all of a sudden, Elon Musk, you're like, wait, what?
Yeah.
The richest man in the world had $44 billion to burn, and he just bought Twitter. And it's like, and you know, so you could criticize him. Twitter hasn't been perfect since he took it over. There's like, you know, it could always be better or whatever. But it's pretty awesome that he did this.
It's pretty awesome. The getting away with eliminating verification is weird. Like
It's strange
because like that seems look if regular people want to get verified and there's a fee for that, that makes sense. Okay, it pays for the site. But and especially for people that are addicted to it and they're on it all day long anyway, like just give them some money. But for celebrities and like musicians and people and you know like that there could be someone impersonating them, like why don't you just give them their check? Because it makes it work better for all of us.
And it does add to confusion a little bit.
I don't need confusion.
Like when Don Lemon announced that he was fired from CNN, there was no check mark next to his name, and I'm like, this is someone trolling. Like, you know what I mean? So that's a little bit confusing.
That doesn't make sense to me. That makes the experience of using the app less good.
I agree with that. I love labeling state-funded media. State-funded media. I love seeing the reaction. So funny, the reaction of NPR.
Yeah.
They're like, this is outrageous. You're like, but it's true.
Well, aren't they just 1% state-funded?
No, it's actually much more than that because then they get, it's like 1% is directly funded by the state, and then they also take money from like local groups that have like collected taxpayer money and stuff like that. So it's actually more. Crystal Ball did a thing on their show, kind of breaking this down. So it's actually in reality it's more than 1%, but regardless, they take taxpayer funded money. So, like, I think there's nothing wrong with labeling them that. And if taxpayers are forced to fund any amount of a news organization, and then that news organization is going to turn around and say, like, we won't report on the Hunter Biden laptop, or we won't do this, or we won't, you know, their stuff during COVID was just god awful. I have no problem with them having a little label there, especially one that pisses them off. I love that.
Who did he label 69% state funded?
Oh, I don't know.
Was it the BBC?
Maybe he did.
Find out who he did.
I also love that I love that he's having fun with it.
Yeah.
Like, there's just something great about it.
Oh, he's a billionaire troll.
Yeah.
He likes to troll people. The fucking one that he did with Bill Gates is my all-time favorite. When he had a photo of Bill Gates was standing next to the emoji of a pregnant man, and it said, "If you want to lose a boner real quick." That is so crazy. Did Twitter label CBC's account CBC? Okay, 69% government-funded media. Opinions were mixed on whether or not Elon Musk was making a sex joke or just thumbing his nose at the Canadian Broadcast Corporation, or both. So, yeah, it says 69% government-funded media.
Well, is that the actual number?
I don't know.
I think...
Did you see this happen, though, during it, too? There were Chinese journalists that had that label on their account, and that was removed.
Wow. Twitter drops government-funded label on media accounts, including in China.
Well, I know he dropped it on the ones... He dropped it on NPR, too. I think in a way, he was just fucking with them for a little while, and then he's like, all right, we're not actually going to do that.
You got to realize, ladies and gentlemen, that oppose him, this is so much better than the alternative. Because the alternative is a system like China has, where it's a state-controlled system. Like their social media is monitored. Like people go to jail for dissenting. Like
Well-
it's very dangerous.
Well, look, I mean, if
It's a
you
good time to show you this video.
Video shows how China is using AI in their schools.
Again, this is from an Instagram account that is popular. What they show is like an edited video. I don't know how accurate all this is though, but
China
蓝色是走神了，
know exactly when someone isn't paying attention.
白色就是你可能跟网络还没有连接好。
These headbands measure each student's level of concentration.
Oh my
The information is then directly sent to the teacher's computer and to parents.
做出选择吧 ，Good job。
Classrooms have robots that analyze students' health and engagement levels. Students wear uniforms with chips that track their locations. There are even surveillance cameras that monitor how often students check their phones or yawn during classes. But schools say it wasn't hard for them getting parental consent to enroll kids into what is one of the world's largest experiments in AI education. A program that's supposed to boost students' grades while also feeding powerful algorithms.
为了就是国家的
that's about it.
Whoa.
yeah.
Whoa. They're going to kill us.
Well,
They're going to dominate.
but
they're going to
sometimes
dominate.
there's I'm always a little bit skeptical of some of these things because you're kind of like, okay, is this just like one random school is doing it this way in China and it's like a little experiment? Because I have heard people like say that like I've heard people who like run businesses in China. I heard a podcast with this one guy who lived there or still lives there in China, and he was like, I don't know what everyone's talking about with this social credit score. He goes, I've never heard of it. It's never affected me. I don't have a social credit score. You know, and I almost like wonder, like sometimes we do get a lot of propaganda about China because there's also a whole bunch of people like who are real hawkish toward them. So I always try to kind of be skeptical of some of this. No doubt the CCP is really creepy. You know what I mean? And they're definitely like an authoritarian, fucked up government.
They're a dictatorship.
Yes, a one-party dictatorship for sure.
And when you've got something like that, that's how you run it.
Yeah, but there were like that dude Adrian Zen, who was like putting out a lot of the stuff about the Uyghur genocide, and he was like drastically like misrepresenting what's happening, and he actually, I believe he apologized for it, but he just got called out like literally like just doing bad math. Like, oh, you didn't carry the one here, motherfucker. It's 10 times less than what you're saying. And it's not, like, the evidence for that is not nearly what they kind of suggested. It's more seems like, oh, yeah, China's a real authoritarian government, and they limit how many children everyone can have. And it's okay. They don't have the one child policy anymore. Now you're allowed 3 or whatever. But like it's like it wasn't quite like the story that was originally put out there. I just always get worried about that.
Uyghur Muslim genocide? Like what?
I have not seen.
A German scholar named Adrian Zenz has recently stood out on the anti-China stage with his reports accusing China of detaining Uyghurs and other minority groups or imposing sterilization on ethnic minorities in its, how do you say that? Xinjiang region?
I believe that's right.
Xinjiang region. Zenz has been welcomed by the U.S. and Western media as a leading expert on Xinjiang.
He was quoted by Pompeo when Pompeo declared that they were committing a genocide.
Okay, and so what does it say?
Full of lies, far-fetched assumptions, and baseless accusations. There's if you go, they did a good piece on this. If you go to antiwar.com, which I recommend everyone do every day, and just search Adrian Zenz there, they did a really good piece breaking down like how it's like straight up like his math is wrong. It's not even like, oh, there's an argument about this. It's like, no, look, he's got these numbers completely wrong. So it's just people get real carried away with this shit. And my biggest concern is just that like after this whole stand in Ukraine, Taiwan is going to fucking be next. And it's like, oh, so now we're going to be flirting with a nuclear confrontation with Russia and China. So that's like my biggest concern in all of this. I do agree, though, that the whole, like, AI in the classroom and all this shit is creepy as fuck.
Bro, if they
I don't want it around my
that
kids.
nationwide, first of all, the problem would be it would work.
Yeah.
And kids would get way better because you'd make them work.
Yeah.
You'd force them. Like, you'd hold them accountable. There wouldn't be any hiding.
It'd
But
work
you'd also,
for that.
It would also be terrible for getting people to recognize that figures of authority should be questioned. You're not going to develop any of that you're going to have to adhere very strictly to these rules.
Yeah.
Which I think part of going through school is learning that different people are more or less effective at communicating, that you want to pay attention to them more or less, that there's an education you're getting in a shitty class, believe it or not. You're getting an education on what happens in a shitty class, about how much you hate it and how much it sucks and how stupid your teacher is.
Yeah.
And how disinterested they are in the subject that they're teaching you and how they expect total compliance and they don't understand human emotions and the way people think and behave. That's an education too. Like going through bad schools gave me a great view on what some adults are potentially like.
I learned a lot from really awful teachers about what I don't want to be in this world.
Yeah, man. Think about how much interaction you have as a child with adults, right? You have your parents and you have your friends' parents. And then very rarely are you alone with strangers, except when you go to school. And then you go to school and you get sent by the least motivated. Sent to the least motivated people, oftentimes, people that aren't happy to be there. They don't enjoy it, especially if it's a bad neighborhood. It's a sketchy job to begin with. You might get jumped by some kids. And these people are just browbeaten, and they get in there, and they don't even want to be there. And these are responsible for showing your children, for most of the day, what an adult is like.
Yeah.
And if that kid doesn't have a strong figure at home, if that kid doesn't have someone at home that's kind and generous and works hard and is very engaged in them with their life, then they think that that's what adults are like.
And has been since the beginning.
Yeah.
You know, it's kind of important that they had that already for years before they go to school,
But
you know?
that's still better than robots.
Yeah.
That's still better.
Because I
full
want
compliance.
Yeah, I want my kids to develop like discipline and a work ethic, and I want like all of that stuff. But I don't want them to do it because the robot's watching them.
Right.
I want them to live and
But
be a
here's the
human,
other thing,
and then be
man.
convinced that like, oh, it's really awesome to develop these things because life's better that way.
But there's also something that we have to take into consideration, that there's a wide spectrum of things that people are interested in. And oftentimes when kids are bored in class, their imagination is running wild, and they'll start thinking about what they want to do with their life. They'll start thinking about things through boredom.
But Joe, if we just give them this pill, they'll pay attention.
I know. Thank God that shit wasn't around when I was a kid. Oh my God, I would have been medicated for sure. If I had like parents who couldn't handle it.
I got so I'm lucky in a sense, but I got diagnosed with ADD and they prescribed me Ritalin, and I think my mother begrudgingly put me on it for a week. And I was just a little kid tweaking out on fucking Ritalin, and I wouldn't eat or sleep.
Oh my
And so she took me off it right away. And she was like, no, fuck it, we're not doing this.
Oof.
And then I never did. Thank God I got off it.
Yeah.
So you really don't. I mean, like I've done Adderall like as an adult, you know what I mean? And you're like, yo, this is a serious drug, man. To just be giving this to children is really insane. Because he's a little boy who wants to run around. Like, let him run around more. I don't know.
It's wild that different ways of thinking about life and different things being interested in whether or not you can pay attention can be a disease. Like if you can't pay attention to things, like we think there's something wrong with the way your mind works. But meanwhile, those kids who can't pay attention to things, watch them play a fucking video game. Watch them play World of Warcraft. Watch them play whatever the fuck the kids play today. What do they play? What's the big one? Yeah, one of those fucking things. These motherfuckers can play that shit all day long and be fully locked in. How come? Because it's interesting. Because they're kids. Kids are bored as fuck. And if they haven't been interested in math previously and then they're behind and then they're trying to pay attention in class, I remember just struggling through math because I was so dumb. I was like, are there calculators? And they're like, yes. Do we have like basically an unlimited supply of batteries? And they're like, yes. I'm like, well, I'm out. Like, well, I'll figure all this shit out with a calculator. Man. I'm not learning how to do that. But that was the stupidest way to think. But as a kid, that left me thinking about other stuff. Like I was bored. And because of bored, I would scribble on my notebook. I would draw. I would think about things.
But you know the history of school, where it comes from, the term school? It comes from Prussia, as they were the first ones to invent school. And this is the Prussian system is what we adopted in America. The Prussians were the geographical and cultural precursor to the Nazis. And the reason they did it was because they had this problem that their conscripted armies would not fight. Like they'd get out there and they'd draft these people into an army and tell them to go to war, and they'd like piss themselves and run away. And they were like, what are we going to do about this? And so they were like, we got to get them at a young age and really like indoctrinate them toward like being subservient to the state. Wow. And Horace Mann, who's considered, the godfather of education in America, he literally said, I think it was in the late 1800s, he literally said, we're adopting the Prussian model. And he was like, but, surely if this model can be used to support like Prussian, like authoritarianism, it can also be used to support republicanism of America, and like, support the great republic. And it's literally, that is the first thing they would do at schools is like, have you pledge allegiance to your government, And that's why I do think it's interesting when a lot of these, like right-winger types today, they'll be like, oh my God, they're propagandizing these kids in school. And I will grant that I do find the latest insane gender sexualization of kids to be particularly troubling. It's not like it's a new thing that they're propagandizing kids in school. In fact, that's kind of what the whole thing was set up for. And it's like, like my kids are like, I got little kids, but like, even just from like my 4-year-olds, man, it's just like the state of these little kids. They're so magical and amazing. And all they want, like they have this amazing passion for life that's built into them. All my 4-year-old ever wants to do is ask me why. Like that's all she wants to do is understand how things work. She wants me to explain them to her. She wants to help. You know what I mean? Like everything you can think of, she wants to do a little task and then say, I helped. Like mom baked muffins and I helped. I stirred. Like they want so badly to know things and participate in the adult world. And then we're like, oh, okay, well, what we're going to do with you for the next 14 years is send you to go sit in a row of desks and memorize and regurgitate information that an authority figure hands to you. It's just horrible. You're like, that's the best we could come up with? What they did in the 1800s in Prussia? That's what you've got for me?
And we're so locked into this idea that that's how to do it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Like they can't learn how to read and write and learn something about history and math in a different way that's like better. I'm not saying I have the answer to it. It's just like someone smarter than me should.
Well, the problem is people are busy and you don't have enough time to invest in your kids' education, restructuring it. A lot of people don't, at least.
Yeah.
That's the thing about it is you just kind of, what's the best school in my area?
Yeah.
You fall into that.
And of course, because the schools are, largely monopolized by the government, there's also there's not that much ability to change things and try new things and try,
I think there's a really important factor that goes on with schools, though. And it's these kids getting together and recognizing that these teachers are idiots. It's like when you have a conversation with your kids as they get older, they're going to tell you about some idiot teachers. And these conversations are hilarious. I got to witness some in California. Because my daughter during the pandemic was on Zoom, so she'd have to do Zoom school.
Okay.
And so, or whatever it was, they had a streaming service they used. And so I get to sit in a room with her while she was doing Zooms, and just to see how disinterested this teacher was. How unbelievably boring it was to listen to the stuff that she had to say. And there's no engagement, no thought of the fact that these are kids. And a lot of these people don't have kids, and they don't have kids that age either. Which is like, or they're not accustomed to being like, kids don't want to fucking pay attention. You got to make it fun. If you don't make it fun, they don't want to do it. They don't want to do it. But that's normal and that's healthy. You want people to do things and have fun. Ideally, your life should be you doing something you enjoy. Yeah. We got to figure out what you enjoy, Bob, and we got to drill it into you, Sally. You find what you gravitate towards. Let's encourage that.
Yeah, 100%, man. And there's, and I knew I had a few great teachers in my life, but 3, they're the minority. And then there were tons of awful teachers, just tons.
And here's the question, man. What creates an artist? Like most people, if they had artistic talent in some way, shape, or form, they'd probably want to do that because it's a fun thing to do. There's something exciting about creating things. But where does that come from? Is that in all of us, but it's just discouraged so hard in some people and through this sort of rigid adherence to whatever is in control, whatever power structure, whatever authority figure. Does that squash it in so many people that only a few of tortured childhoods get out? And maybe we associate creativity and we associate brilliant art with people with tortured childhoods for all the wrong reasons.
Did you ever hear that? I've always loved this quote so much, but someone asked Jerry Seinfeld, or they were like, when you were a kid, were you like the funny one in your group of friends? And he went, we were all funny, and then everyone else got jobs.
Wow.
You know, and it's kind of like that. Like there is something to that, man. Like, what do you mean? We were all hilarious.
Yeah.
I just kept being hilarious.
Yeah.
They all decided to stop at some point. Yeah. I'm like, I don't think everyone could be an artist. There are some people who are wired for like different things. There are some people who are like this dude's a chemist, or this dude's like a computer programmer, and he was made to be that. Like he had like a real propensity toward that. But I think there's no question a lot of people have that squashed. A lot of people, like, you know, I've known people like that who are
Those
like,
are the most bitter people. They're the most bitter people.
Well, it's sad. There's something tragic about that.
You know, the guys that wanted to be in a band, but it just didn't work out.
Or just didn't have the balls to like go for it, and then got a job, and then had a family. Well, now you got a family, you can't leave this job now. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like, there's something so tragic about that, man.
It's weird. You know, it's a sad person to be around. Someone who just they didn't chase their dream, or they didn't have the encouragement, or they didn't have the confidence. They didn't have the circumstances. They had bad circumstances that befell them.
Yeah. Well, if you're like young and you're listening to this, like, keep that in mind. I remember Jordan Peterson said once, I think it might have been on with you. I can't remember, maybe it wasn't, but he said something about like, you know, there's people who are like in a job that they hate or in a career that they hate, and they'll think about like, well, I can't leave and pursue something else because what about all the risks of doing that?
Yeah.
And you're like, yeah, what about the risks of not?
Yeah.
What about the risks of doing something that makes you miserable for the rest of your life?
Yeah.
Because that seems like a risk worth considering, you know?
I was really lucky in having no stability when I was young, which doesn't make sense if you think about it, because you want to provide your children with as much stability as possible. But I was really lucky that I didn't, because I didn't believe in like normal systems. Like I didn't believe in them. They seemed alien to me. Like the idea of getting a job in an office was like so crazy. I never even considered it. I've never had an office job ever. Even when I had other jobs, I took these weird alternative jobs. Like I did construction, or I drove limos. I did stuff that like anybody could do. Like you didn't need, there's no barrier to entry. Like it was, working in an office to me seemed like madness. Like to sit in, I for sure have ADHD or whatever the fuck it is. Yeah. But it works for regular life. Like if you have just a life you enjoy, it's actually beneficial. But this idea of sitting and doing a job all day that I was completely unemotionally attached to, not creatively attached to, I couldn't do it. But if I had to do some stuff for money that I knew was temporary, I could do that. That's easy. Deliver newspapers, fine. That's just stuff I'm doing.
And you
for
do something
money.
kind of physical where you're like doing something. It's
just
a little
fine.
bit of
I'm
a
doing
different
something
thing
for money. It's not a job.
Right.
I'm not going to move my way up the corporate ladder. Are you fucking crazy? Like it was so impossible for me. I was just programmed so different.
No, I'm well aware of it in myself too, where there'll be things sometimes that like something like even like shopping, like clothes shopping or something like that. If it's like going slow, I'm like, I've never been so miserable in my entire life. I don't know why this is so excruciatingly painful. I have no interest. I don't freaking care.
You're so
let's
bored.
go. I'm so bored.
So bored.
But if I'm doing the things that I'm passionate about, I could focus on that forever, like limitlessly, you know?
That's where marijuana comes in. Because marijuana and shopping, it's a totally different experience. Then you're just having fun, you're relaxed, and just walking around. You could walk around with the slowest shopper ever and just make fun of everything that happens.
Well, dude, I mean, I started smoking pot like very young in life, like 14 maybe, and I became like an everyday smoker very quickly. And I think there was something to that connection, that the things that were so boring and miserable to me in life were like, oh, now this is fun. Like, this is not that anymore. It's like, oh, look, I found the cure for this.
Dude, 100%. That was my entire time of filming Fear Factor. the entire fucking every episode of every season except the first 4 episodes. The first 4 episodes I did sober, I was like, oh my God, I'm going to go crazy. And then once I started getting high, I was like, this is awesome.
I could see where that would change the experience.
Oh my
quite a
God,
bit.
it was a much better experience. It was much better. It was like night and day. I was like, oh yeah, this is an amazing job.
For the record, I don't recommend other 14-year-olds get high all the time. There was there were problems with it, and it wasn't for the best. But
I was very fortunate that I was during my entire like from high school age to like the time I started doing stand up, I didn't party at all. Like very, very rarely because I was competing. So because of that, I was always scared to lose, and I was always scared that I would lose because I had gotten drunk and then I was hungover.
And you're not talking about losing a basketball game. You're talking about getting kicked in the face and knocked unconscious.
It's not fun. You don't want that to happen to you. So I was obsessed with not getting kicked in the face, but kicking people in the face. And so if like not getting drunk was like the solution to a lot of those problems. And it's also, I just knew that there was a lot of kids that I was friends with at the time.
You took the opposite of the John Jones approach?
Well, John Jones is so goddamn talented. He could dominate while partying.
Was that on here when he said that?
Yeah.
To you? That he said he would do it?
Yes.
So he had an excuse in his mind?
Yeah, in case he lost, and he still won. He still beat everybody. He beat people with like minimal training, man. He was so fucking good. John's so good, and he comes from a family of super athletes. Like both of his brothers are in the NFL. I mean, it's just kissed by God. You know,
you're just
there's people like that, man. There's Roy Jones Jr.'s and Mike Tyson's, and they have all the talent in the world and the athletic ability, but they're also kissed by God.
Yeah.
They're just great people.
But John Jones fought Cyril Gahn, and you're just like, I guess you could have just always been fighting heavyweights this whole time, man. Like you just probably could have always done this, and it's just like it's not even like a competition even about you're like there's not even a next fight that I'm dying to see. Yeah. Because I'm just kind of like, I mean, there's no one. There's no one who's going to fuck with him.
He's so good. He's the GOAT. I mean, if you're gonna have a GOAT, I don't think you can argue that John's not the GOAT. I think the argument really is, who are the greats? Because it's so subjective. If Nurmagomedov was better than John Jones, it's so. What do you did you like longevity?
No, I
do
see
you
what
like
you're saying.
total dominance? Because in total dominance, Nurmagomedov is the GOAT. Total dominance, man. Just smashes everybody. Nobody had a chance. Do you understand how crazy it is to watch a guy storm through an entire division with masters like Justin Gaethje, a master of destruction? Yeah. And no one has a chance. Yeah. Conor McGregor, master of destruction. No one has a chance. This motherfucker, he gets everybody. There's an argument that he's the GOAT. There's an argument that Mighty Mouse is the greatest expression of martial arts in the history of combat sports. I would make that argument. In his prime, he's the greatest expression.
Slamming guys into arm bars and that crazy shit.
Elite athletes, and he's a ghost. He's standing right in front of him. He's tagging him, and he's a ghost. His footwork is magical.
His last fight, where he won the belt back, that knockout was insane.
And
he
it was a repeat
followed him
of what the guy did to him.
Yeah, the way he timed it as he's following him into the cage, it's just like insane shit that guy does.
Masterful. And he's in his what is he? 36? How old is Mighty Mouse? Let's find out how old Mighty Mouse is. Because for the 125-pound division, to be competing at a very high level in a natural athlete in his 30s, he's 36? Yes. Recall.
There you go.
They say marijuana kills your recall. That's bullshit. It confuses a little. It's a little cloudy sometimes.
How do you know Mighty Mouse was 36 then?
That guy, when he was in his prime, like when he beat Cejudo the first time, when he stopped him in the first round, he was the ultimate
I forgot
expression.
about that. They knee him to the body, right?
Oh, my God.
Beat him up. That's right. And it was real close. The Cejudo second fight was very close.
Dude, I went behind Mighty Mouse once when he was backstage at the UFC, and I just grabbed him to hug him, just to play. He's my friend. I go to hug him, and he turns and just to fuck with me, hits me in the body, touches me, the most gentle touch with two knees so fast that I couldn't believe they actually moved that quickly. It was just, it was just, he went, just did that to me. I was like, oh my goodness.
Yeah, he is an unreal talent.
Dude.
Unreal.
When
He's
he
got an
hit
argument.
Cejudo with those knees to the body, I remember watching that going, I don't think I've ever seen anybody land a knee to the body more precisely.
It's a shame
was
that
magic.
The Cejudo, it's a shame that he left the UFC when he did and didn't get like the third fight with Cejudo, a rubber match there, I think would have been so huge. You know what I mean? Like, I feel like he never got the fight that had like that type of height behind him.
I believe you're correct.
It was just like kind of like hardcore fans knew, like they were like, yo, this guy's like unbelievable. Like he's the best. But I think he just didn't quite have the moment. There was also talk of him moving up and fighting TJ Dillashaw, and I think there was like a contractual dispute or something like that. Didn't happen. But it's a shame that he didn't get one of those like huge moments. Because even when he beat Cejudo the first time, he wasn't like that big of a name yet.
Right.
Like people didn't know like who that was. Whereas like by the third fight, it would have been like a huge thing, you know? And then GSP also is in the conversation.
100%.
He's got to have an argument.
Yeah, he's in the conversation for sure. The dominance of the welterweight division.
And the fact that he beat everyone he ever faced and came back and won the middleweight title after a leave. That's hard to not. That's hard to not consider him there.
Yeah, it's hard. Yeah, I mean, especially how brilliantly he handled it. He just like beat Bisping and said, "I'm done."
I do
Give
think
up the belt.
All of this is kind of subjective, like you said. It's like, what do you like? But I would say that for me, John Jones has the strongest argument because he dominated multiple generations of fighters. Like he dominated the Shogun Rampage Machida generation of fighters. Then he dominated what was it?
Gustafsson.
The Gustafsson,
Well,
Cormier.
the first fight's the most impressive because he didn't train for it.
Yeah.
That's just the most impressive thing is that John Jones pulls out the first fight in the later rounds. He wins the decision by dominating the later rounds in a fight that he didn't train.
And we had never seen him in a dogfight before at that point. And you were like, sometimes there are these guys. I remember thinking the same thing with Israel Adesanya when he fought Kelvin Gastelum, whereas all we had seen from him was just like dominating everybody.
Yeah.
And so there's kind of a question mark a little bit with that where you don't know, some people like when the going gets tough kind of like look for a way out. And I remember, if you remember in that fight in the fourth round, Kelvin fucked him up in that fourth round. He really hurt him and he was busted up. And you remember before the fifth round starts is that he looks at him and he's like, I'm prepared to die for this.
He said
and then he went out and dominated the fifth round and you were like, oh, okay. This dude's special. He's not just like a talent that can dominate people, but he's also like a real fighter.
He's so special that he chose to fight Pereira for the fourth time after getting knocked out.
And he was getting
in
fucked up in that fight too.
He was getting fucked up. His leg was getting fucked up.
His leg was getting chewed up, and he was cornered, and he was taking
talking
a blitz.
about it after the fight. He was like, "Not again. He's getting me again." Because he was getting him again with the same goddamn thing. That guy is so clever. Here he goes. He says, I'm prepared to die. I have no problem. I'm prepared to die.
And look how fucked up he was really beat up, man.
I'm prepared to. He said, I'm prepared to die. I'm prepared to. Holy shit.
Dude,
Holy shit,
I do like at the end of it though. Not knocking him, I'm just singing his praises. He's the greatest. But at the end of the fight, where he's like, "That's it." He goes, "We're not fighting again." He goes, "I don't keep score. I end score or whatever." You're like, I get where you're coming from on that one. You're like,
Jesus
because
Christ.
you should really move up. You should move up and go fight
move
a
up
different
to
way.
205, fella. Get the fuck out of here.
It's just it's pretty funny to be 3-1 and go, I think we've all seen enough of this.
Well,
Like,
I don't think he's 3-1. I think he won the first fight.
Oh
The
yeah, that's
first
right. It was a
kickboxing
bad
fight. It was a bad decision,
look,
I believe.
you can say this.
And he got saved in the second kickboxing fight. Adesanya had him on skates.
Right.
He was in real trouble.
And he was
they gave him
winning.
a standing 8 count,
Right.
which is huge. Especially you look at the first round of the first MMA fight.
And he
He drops him in the end of the first round. Now imagine if he dropped him.
He rocked him. I don't know if he actually
rocked
fell.
him. You're right. I don't know if his hand touched the ground. I think he just rocked him. You're right. But he rocks him in a very similar manner to when he finishes him off in the second fight.
Right.
Imagine if that had taken place and the referee had stood in and gave him a standing 8 count. Pereira is a monster. He recovers quickly.
Yep.
Like he can get cracked, and there's some speculation that some of that has to do with the fact that he's cutting so much weight. Michael Bisping, I believe it was there was a few other fighters I think it was Sugar Sean O'Malley, we're talking about this insane weight cut that this guy makes to get down to 185 pounds, and the fact that that could affect his ability to absorb punishment. Very possibly. But imagine a scenario where he gets rocked like that, but then you give him 8 whole seconds to recover. And the referee's doing it like 1, 2, 3. Like, they don't want him to lose, right? And so they give him this little ability to recover, and he survives, and then he winds up winning and knocking out Adesanya in this spectacular fashion. Hits him with this monster left hook. But that's the thing about that guy. That's what's so terrifying about fighting him. And that's why Izzy's so special. That he's like, I can figure this motherfucker out.
Well, you also got to look at it like, there's like a winner versus loser mentality to that. And I remember thinking of this going into that last fight where, like, look, you could look at it and say, I was fighting my best fight and he still got me. You know what I mean?
Right.
Or you could look at that and go, I had this guy.
Yeah.
I was winning that fight until the 5th round. You know what I mean? The thing is, there's zero margin for error when you fight that dude.
Zero.
Like, you can't fuck up once.
And it's almost, you got to crack him, because like him saying that he was going to get him early, I think he kind of knew that the punishment he puts on your legs, it's so sneaky how he does it, man. But he throws the best calf kicks in the fucking business, man.
Yeah.
He really does.
He's going to be a force. He'll be a force at 205. I mean, he's a real dangerous guy,
At 205, he's going to have a problem with real elite grapplers, I think.
Yeah, there's some big grapplers that's a little bit of an issue, but it'll be kind of interesting to see how he can do. It'll be very interesting.
But he's training with Glover, and Glover's one of the best grapplers that ever fought in the 205-pound division.
Yep.
So he's going to get amazing instruction. But when you saw the first Adesanya fight, when Izzy took his back, when Izzy was on top of him, you could imagine someone who's an elite grappler in that division, like, having their way with him in those situations.
Well, when Israel Adesanya moved up to 205.
Right.
And fought
Jan Blachowicz.
Blachowicz. Like, that was the issue that he had with him. He was like, okay, I know what I can do to this guy. But he's bigger and stronger than Izzy.
Blachowicz is huge.
No, I'm saying, but Pereira is bigger and stronger than Izzy. So it's a question. How good can he get?
That fight at 205 would be fucking insane.
That's a real good
Jan
fight.
Blachowicz versus Alex Pereira at 205 would be fucking bananas.
Dude, that fight, him against Hill, would be a great fight. Any of the matchups there would be really
you
good.
Can't make any mistakes against Blachowicz, and Blachowicz can take it.
Yeah,
that guy can take it. Holy shit, is he an animal?
Yeah. No, he's
and then you've
good.
got Ankalaev. Like, Jesus Christ, man.
And what's his name? And the champ is well, not the champ anymore. But he's out for a few years, I think.
Jamal
right?
Hill?
No. Jamal Hill is the champ now. What's his name? Who was the champ but didn't lose it? Shit. Fucking the guy. What's his name? He literally just got a big shoulder injury. Right?
Oh, Yuri Prohaska. Oh my God, I'm blanking too.
Yeah. He.
How did I not fucking catch that? That's how good this fucking Ric Flair weed is. That's hilarious. See, there, my memory sucks.
Yep,
See,
there you
my
go.
memory's
Well,
great,
you're
and it sucks.
1 for 2 so far.
Prohaska, do you know what happened with him?
I know he fucked his shoulder up in a real awful way, right?
Dude, he fucked his shoulder up so bad, the UFC surgeon said it was the worst shoulder injury he's ever seen. This is what happened. His shoulder came out of place during training, and they yanked on it to put it back in and fucked it up.
Jesus.
Yeah.
That sucks,
That
man.
sucks.
Wally's champion of the world.
Wally's the champion of the world. Coming off the most insane fight with Glover Teixeira. I mean, that was a fucking insane fight.
One of the best fights ever.
The fact that he submitted Glover to win, he's so unusual. You watch his movements,
yeah, it's
everything
crazy.
is so different. It's so hard to prepare for this guy. Here he's training again. So he'll do this like he's just fucking around. He's like loosening up, I think. Is that what he's saying he's doing?
Yeah, I was just showing up what you're talking about. That's all.
Oh, but his movement when he fights is so unusual.
So this is why they like stripped the title right away, because they were just like, this is going to be
relinquished the title
because he was like, this is going to be.
He's the real deal, man.
He's incredible.
He relinquished the title. He decided that injury was too spectacular, that he needed real time to recover. But what's interesting about this is, like, shoulder injuries are notorious for being they repeat. It's very hard. Like, a shoulder's a complicated joint. You got to really rehabilitate that thing perfectly before you come back. So many guys have come back from knee injuries and shoulder injuries too soon. Ed Shortfuse Herman, who just retired, he got his ACL reconstructed, and in training, like getting back into it, blew it out again because it wasn't really recovered yet. You got to give yourself the right amount of time. You're an elite athlete. And so he was talking about getting back in there, I think in July, and I think that's all scrapped. But I think he was talking about getting back in there very quickly. He says he knows his body, but man, that's a complicated joint. Like, these guys that are surgeons today are the greatest that have ever lived. They can do amazing things with people's shoulders. But even T.J. Dillashaw, he's had a shitload of surgeries, and his shoulders are fucked.
That was awful seeing that in that fight with Aljamain Sterling.
Horrible. But TJ's shoulders have been fucked for a long time. He just compensated for it to the point where it all eventually just fell apart.
Well, he looked real good in his fight before that. I mean, I don't know. I guess he said he had a lot of problems with it in that training camp.
Well, in that fight, he looked really good before it, and Corey Sandhagen destroyed his knee. Destroyed his knee in that exchange.
Yeah.
Like, his knee was fucked up, man. And so from that, he goes and wins that fight. He wins that decision. And now he's got fucked up shoulders. His shoulders are so bad. And he got surgery on them, but they basically said, like, you're not going to be able to fight again. Like, they just won't hold up. Like, it's been too much damage. And that's what I'm worried about when I hear people having a catastrophic shoulder injury and then saying, I'm going to get back in there as quickly as possible. Like, be careful. Shoulder injuries, they're a tough one. Knee, back. I mean, when people recover from, like, Aljamain Sterling recovers from a neck surgery where they replace one of his discs with an artificial disc and goes on to retain the title.
Yeah.
Like, holy shit, man. Like, you got an artificial disc in your neck and you're fighting. Like, the stuff they can do today is wild.
Yeah, it's incredible. Shoulders do seem like the trickiest one, though. And they seem like the ones that, like, it's weird, like, when you see people, I remember this from, like, basketball, like, in like, high school and shit, whereas there'd be someone who, like, their shoulder popped out, like they dislocated their shoulder, and then that just happens to them. Then that's just a thing that, like, regularly, like, not like all the time, but you always, like, know it could happen again. And, like, there's really, like, I don't know.
This is a thing I want to recommend for shoulder health if people are interested in this. There's a product that I have no affiliation with other than I bought it. It's called Crossover Symmetry, and it's these bands, and they come in various weights, and you put them on a post or you can hang them on the wall or whatever, and you do a series of exercises, whether it's pulling them upwards or pulling them across or pulling them down, pulling them this way and that way, and it's all shoulder strengthening. And it really can help people, and it really can prevent injuries too if you do it on a regular basis, if you stick to it. You got to think of your shoulders as like something that you're protecting. You're not just like building it up. You should protect the joint. Like, that's what Knees Over Toes guy is really interested in. Like, his whole thing is about, like, strengthening all the muscles around your knee, and strengthening the muscles around your shoulder is so important too. And so often when people are training in a thing, whether it's jiu-jitsu or Muay Thai or anything, you're only training doing that thing. And that thing can strengthen you, and it certainly will. But it would benefit you to doing things to prevent injuries and strengthening joints and strengthening the tissue around vulnerable areas in your body, whether it's your neck or your shoulders or your knees. It's very good. It's very important. Everybody should do it if you can.
Well, I know who's happy right now is the people who run that company with those shoulder
those
shoulder straps.
There's a bunch of different. I mean,
I like to think someone's listening live and they're like, yes, that's my thing.
Well, the Knees Over Toes guy has a great system that he does too with just he uses dumbbells and different external and internal rotation exercises, and those are all very good. There's a bunch of different things you could do with just dumbbells. There's a bunch of different exercises you can do that all are just low weight things that strengthen your shoulders. Another one that's great is club bells. I don't know if you ever used them before, but they're like, it looks like a small bat that's made out of iron. And you do all these like the Iron Sheik used to do it with those big wooden ones. You ever seen those things?
No.
Where you do things like shield casting, where it's all you have this thing in your hand that's like a bat and the weight is weird. So you don't even need much weight. Like 15 pounds, you can get a really good workout. And you're holding these things out, and you're doing all sorts of different exercises with these things. You're swinging them overhead. Like, look at that. That's the Iron Sheik doing it.
Oh, yeah.
Those things are tremendous for shoulder strength.
Wasn't enough
A lot
to
of
beat
people-
Hulk Hogan.
That guy was a beast, dude. In real life, he was
Yeah,
an elite athlete, elite wrestler.
Was he really?
Oh yeah.
Oh, I didn't know that.
Yeah, elite wrestler for Iran, like legit.
Oh, okay.
That's where he wrestled, right? It wasn't fake, right? Because you never know with those people. Like with the he came from Iran, right? I mean, didn't lie about that, did he? Back then, you could just lie though. There was no internet.
Dude, my favorite wrestling story ever. My favorite storyline.
Who did he wrestle for? We should give him his props because the Iron Sheik was the fucking man. I'm 99% sure he wrestled for Iran, but he was like an elite wrestler.
What year?
Yeah,
When did he wrestle for Iran? Probably
68.
Oh, okay. So that's before the revolution. That's when we liked the government.
Look at him, fucking animal.
By the way, the CIA overthrew the Iranian government in 1953 and installed the Shah.
You
That's why
motherfucker.
Just saying. I'm just saying that wasn't a good thing.
And on that note, dude, we're like almost 4 hours in.
Oh, can I just say the one thing that I wanted to say before we leave? That my favorite wrestling storyline ever was when, during the first Iraq War that we were just talking about, is Sergeant Slaughter defected and became a pro-Iraqi. Like that was his thing, that he was the American soldier, because that was a big problem we had.
No,
he was like, I realize Iraq is right. And then he was,
oh my god, that's hilarious.
And
that's hilarious. Look at him. He's getting the fucking.
And then,
oh Jesus Christ!
And dude, it was so easy in 1991. It was so easy.
Can we play it? Can we play it?
And people are like, boo!
Sergeant Slaughter betrays America.
He conquered Kuwait. His name overnight became a household word around the world.
What an amazing
American sergeant defected to Iraq.
This is amazing. What is he unwrapping? What is this boot?
An Iraqi military boot?
Nice pair of boots. What a gift!
People are so angry.
Slaughter, glad that my career will follow your lofty standards. Just as you conquered Kuwait.
What a ballsy move!
Sergeant Slaughter will wear these boots. I will wear your gift.
You're saying those are from Saddam Hussein.
Yes, I get it. I get it.
The ultimate warrior.
All right, it's over. The podcast is over. That's amazing. All right, bye everybody.